Ace-Queen is a hand that lives between power and peril. Many players see it as a top-tier hand, only to find themselves trapped against stronger holdings. This guide explores every layer of its nature: when to play it boldly, when to slow down, and when to let it go. Through quiet analysis and thoughtful pacing, you'll learn to read the board, recognize danger, and see why professionals treat Ace-Queen with calm respect. Welcome to Sleepy Poker, where you fall asleep to the art and strategy of the game. Chapter 1: The Illusion of Strength. Ace-Queen is one of the most attractive hands in poker. When the cards slide toward you and both letters appear side by side, it feels like a signal of power. The ace represents command, the queen represents elegance, and together they look unstoppable. Yet beneath the surface, this hand holds a quiet truth that many players discover only through painful repetition. It looks stronger than it performs. Understanding this contrast between appearance and reality is the first step toward mastery. Every player remembers their early sessions when Ace-Queen brought excitement. The heart rate quickens, the posture straightens, and the brain imagines victory before the flop even comes. This is the illusion of strength. It is the belief that high cards guarantee dominance. Professionals know that such confidence often leads to the biggest losses. They recognize that poker rewards clarity, not emotion. A beautiful hand can be a dangerous one if you fail to understand its limits. Ace-Queen stands on a thin line between the monsters of the game and the middling tier. Against weaker aces, it dominates with ease. Against Ace-King, however, it becomes a fragile underdog. Against medium pocket pairs, its equity swings depending on position, board texture, and initiative. The numbers tell a story of balance, not supremacy. Even Ace-Queen suited, with its graceful potential for flushes and straights, wins only modestly against other premium hands. Professionals do not fear this truth. They use it to anchor discipline. The psychological pull of Ace-Queen lies in its symmetry. Both cards connect through royal symbolism and the promise of greatness. Players project strength upon it before a single chip enters the pot. That projection can cloud judgment. When you raise with Ace-Queen and face a re-raise, emotion whispers that folding would be cowardice. Ego tells you that two face cards cannot be behind. Yet reality often proves otherwise. The most common traps in poker arise from the refusal to accept domination. To see Ace-Queen clearly, you must begin to detach from appearance. The color of the suits, the alignment of the letters, the way they sparkle under casino lights, all of it is theater. True strength in poker exists only through context. Position, stack depth, and opponent tendencies matter far more than the cards themselves. The professionals who make deep runs in tournaments do not worship their holdings. They observe situations. They measure risk. They act without the weight of attachment. Consider the dynamic of domination, one of the most important ideas in poker. When you hold Ace-Queen and your opponent holds Ace-King, you share one card of power but lose the battle of kickers. You may hit an ace on the flop and still lose a large pot. This is why professionals refer to Ace-Queen as the trap hand. It tempts the unaware to build pots that should never exist. It offers confidence at the exact moments when caution would profit most. Learning to fold it is not weakness. It is evolution. The illusion of strength fades once you start thinking in ranges instead of single hands. A raise from an early position often includes the strongest possible combinations. When Ace-Queen faces that range, it falls behind more often than not. Calling in those spots converts excitement into vulnerability. The professional understands this and folds without hesitation. Folding does not mean fear. It means respect for math and structure. In poker, surrender can be a form of strength. At the same time, ace-queen remains far from useless. It is powerful in late position, formidable when suited, and capable of strong post-flop control when handled properly. The goal is not to distrust the hand, but to see it for what it truly is, a tool that performs best in the right circumstances. Treat it as a precision instrument, not a blunt weapon. Each decision with ace-queen should reflect information, not emotion. The calm player earns small, steady profits, while the reckless one chases memories of imagined glory. Discipline with ace-queen also shapes mental rhythm. Every time you fold it pre-flop after feeling excitement, you train your brain to separate thrill from decision. Every time you control a pot size rather than inflate it, you practice restraint that will serve you later in deeper runs. The illusion loses power when you realize that poker's long-term winners are not those who win the most spectacular pots, but those who avoid the slow bleed of unnecessary losses. Ace-queen is not the enemy. It is a mirror. It reflects how you think about strength, control, and patience. When you see it as a gift, you fall into the trap. When you see it as a challenge to remain measured, you begin to play like a professional. The illusion of strength dissolves when you learn that poker rewards awareness over aggression and quiet understanding over excitement. Ace-queen can still shine, but only in the calm hands of a player who has learned to respect its beauty without being fooled by it. Chapter 2. The Trap Hand Defined. Ace-queen carries a nickname that every professional understands. It is called the trap hand. The name does not come from losing a single big pot or making one mistake. It comes from the pattern of quiet, repeating losses that unfold when players trust it too much. The trap lies not in the cards themselves, but in the way the mind responds to them. It looks too good to fold, too strong to let go, and too close to greatness to treat with caution. This illusion lures players into pots where they have no business staying, and the result is slow, consistent damage over time. To define the trap hand, we must first define what makes a hand dangerous. A truly weak holding rarely causes much trouble. You fold, you move on, and the loss is minimal. The real danger lives in hands that look premium, but are often second best when large pots form. These are the hands that inspire confidence while quietly building risk. Ace-queen lives at the center of that concept. It wins small when ahead and loses large when behind. That asymmetry is what makes it a trap. The idea of reverse implied odds explains this perfectly. Implied odds measure how much more you can win when your hand improves. Reverse implied odds measure how much you are likely to lose when your opponent improves. Ace-queen performs well when it dominates, but when it is dominated, the losses grow quickly. In professional play, it is rarely the big bluffs that destroy a player's bankroll. It is the trap hands repeated across sessions that quietly erode profit. Many players first encounter the trap hand when they make top pair with ace-queen and face aggression. The pot grows, the opponent's story builds, and yet folding feels impossible. The player holds top pair top kicker on a dry board and believes it must be best. Then comes the reveal, ace-king two pair or a slow-played set, and the realization that the strength was an illusion. The trap had been sprung not by luck, but by pattern. The professional learns to read these moments early, to see danger before it becomes obvious. Every hand in poker exists on a spectrum between potential and peril. The trap hand sits directly at the midpoint, its value shifting with position, opponent, and stack depth. Professionals treat ace-queen as situational rather than absolute. They understand that in early position or against aggression, it often falls behind the top of an opponent's range. In late position, or with initiative, it becomes a versatile tool. The difference lies not in the cards, but in the context. Recognizing this difference separates confidence from competence. Calling too often with ace-queen is one of the defining leaks of intermediate players. It represents the stage between beginner caution and professional discipline. Many players start their journey folding too frequently. Then they gain courage, start playing more hands, and reach for the beautiful ones. Ace-queen feels like a reward for that courage. Unfortunately, poker is not a game that rewards emotion. The discipline to let go, even of a hand that looks beautiful, is a sign of growth. Professionals fold ace-queen preflop more often than most amateurs ever realize. The lesson of the trap hand is humility. Poker humbles those who confuse probability with certainty. Ace-queen's equity looks strong on paper, but equity is not outcome. Even when statistically favored, a hand can still underperform through bad position or poor timing. Professionals learn to think beyond raw numbers. They frame each situation as a balance between potential profit and possible disaster. When the risk of domination is high, folding ace-queen becomes a victory for logic over pride. Another layer of the trap hand comes from the false safety of symmetry. Players see the combination of an ace and a queen and assume harmony. They forget that poker is a game of uneven matchups. The same hand that looks flawless from one angle becomes fragile from another. Facing a strong opponent's re-raise, ace-queen no longer shines. It trembles beneath superior kickers and tight ranges. Recognizing that fragility early is what allows a professional to preserve chips and energy for better moments. The term trap also speaks to emotion. It is not just the pot you lose, but the mindset it creates afterward. Players feel frustration when ace-queen turns against them. That frustration can bleed into future hands, creating a spiral of reckless recovery plays. The best players reset immediately. They accept that the trap is not personal. It is structural. Every strong hand has a weakness. Ace-queen's weakness simply lies closer to the surface. Recognizing that and moving forward with calm focus is the real skill. When you sit at the table and peel back ace-queen, remember what it represents. It is not a gift from fate. It is a test of discipline. Each time you fold it correctly, you gain a small edge that accumulates over a lifetime of play. Each time you chase with it, when logic says stop, you pay a quiet fee to the game. Poker rewards awareness and punishes ego. The trap hand is not a curse. It is a mirror that reflects how you handle temptation and whether you can remain steady in the face of beauty that demands attention. Chapter 3: Ace-Queen versus the Premium Range. To understand ace-queen fully, you must study how it performs against the best hands in poker. Strength in this game is relative, never absolute. Ace-queen looks powerful when held beside middling cards, yet when measured against the true premium range, its limitations appear clearly. This chapter teaches how professionals see ace-queen, not as a weapon to win every pot, but as a measuring stick for discipline. Facing the top of an opponent's range, they think not in hope, but in probability. The premium range in most games consists of pocket pairs from tens or better, ace-king, and occasionally ace-queen itself. These are the hands that define preflop aggression and shape the flow of large pots. Against this range, ace-queen sits near the border of comfort. It holds equity, but not dominance. The key to handling it is understanding when you are slightly behind and when you are completely trapped. That distinction guides all profitable decision-making. Mathematically, ace-queen suited has roughly 44% equity when facing ace-king suited. That number may sound close, yet in practice, position and initiative tilt it further. Ace-queen offsuit performs even worse, slipping closer to 40%. Against pocket kings or aces, the hand is in deep danger. Against jacks or tens, it is a coin flip. The numbers show a simple truth: ace-queen rarely finds itself far ahead against strong opponents. Its profit comes from situations where others are weaker, or where the player holding it controls the action. Professional players memorize these relationships, not to calculate every hand, but to calibrate their instincts. When a tight player re-raises, they know that the most likely holdings are exactly the hands that crush ace-queen. When a looser player applies pressure, they can continue with greater confidence. They treat equity as context, not emotion. Each situation becomes an evaluation of ranges, rather than a reaction to cards. This calm, analytical rhythm defines high-level play. One of the most deceptive matchups is ace-queen versus ace-king. On the surface, both hands share the same structure: one high card, one royal partner. But in practice, ace-king dominates ace-queen in nearly every meaningful way. The kicker difference means that whenever an ace lands on the board, the queen is drawing thin. Professionals respect this domination deeply. They fold ace-queen preflop to large re-raises in spots where ace-king would be an easy call or a 4-bet. The distinction saves countless chips over time. Against pocket pairs, the story shifts slightly. Versus smaller pairs, ace-queen benefits from overcard power and potential to improve. Against middle pairs like tens or jacks, it becomes a fragile coin flip. Against queens, kings, or aces, it is in serious trouble. These relationships teach the central lesson of range awareness. Strength exists on a sliding scale. The professional does not label hands as good or bad. They measure them by the company they keep. Position adds another layer to this relationship. Out of position, ace-queen loses part of its potential, even when statistically close in equity. Information becomes limited. Continuation bets become riskier. The professional treats out-of-position ace-queen as a defensive tool rather than an aggressive weapon. In position, the same hand can pressure smaller pairs and weaker aces effectively. Understanding this balance between equity and information is what separates success from slow loss. Equity also shifts with stack depth. In shallow stacks, ace-queen gains strength because the risk is limited. Shorter stacks favor simplified all-in decisions, where raw equity matters most. Deep stacks expose its weakness, as the threat of domination expands with more betting streets. Professionals adapt to each environment, fluidly. They see the same hand differently, depending on how deep the chips lie between them and their opponents. The psychological mistake most players make is ignoring this relativity. They see ace-queen and decide it must be played aggressively every time. That emotional attachment ignores the quiet math of the game. Poker is not about absolutes, it is about proportions. The difference between winning and losing often lies in how gracefully a player adjusts their view of strength when the context changes. To compare hands properly, you must also account for initiative. The player who raises first holds the advantage of representation. When you open with ace-queen, you can credibly represent the strongest holdings. When you call a raise with it, you lose that layer of control. Professionals protect initiative fiercely. They understand that when they lose initiative with ace-queen, it reverts to a reactive hand, not a proactive one. At the heart of this chapter lies a peaceful truth. No single hand defines you as a player. How you respond to its limitations does. Ace-queen against the premium range will often trail slightly, yet those small disadvantages build wisdom. The purpose of this analysis is not to discourage play, but to encourage clarity. When you see ace-queen for what it is, a hand balanced between glory and humility, you gain calm. That calm becomes profit. That profit becomes confidence, born not from illusion, but from understanding. Chapter 4: The Psychology of False Confidence. Poker is a game built on perception. Cards tell one story, emotion tells another. Among all starting hands, few inspire as much misplaced confidence as ace-queen. It shines when first seen, two tall figures standing side by side, both royal, both graceful. The sight of them awakens excitement, especially in players who have learnt enough to fold the weak hands, but not yet enough to fear the pretty ones. This emotional reaction, though small, shapes countless decisions and leads directly into the psychology of false confidence. Confidence in poker can be a double-edged tool. When guided by awareness, it builds momentum. When driven by emotion, it blinds reason. Ace-queen, more than most hands, exposes this difference. Players who feel proud when they see it are already in danger. Professionals, on the other hand, experience neutrality. They know that the hand's real strength lies not in how it looks, but in how well it fits the situation. Their confidence comes from process, not from pictures on the felt. False confidence arises from pattern recognition without depth. After winning a few small pots with ace-queen, the mind forms a shortcut. This hand wins. The next time it appears, that memory triggers expectation. But poker does not honor expectation. Every situation is new, every table dynamic unique. When a player treats ace-queen as an automatic raise or call, they disconnect from the reality of context. The game quietly punishes that blindness, not with dramatic losses, but with slow erosion, one misstep at a time. Another layer of false confidence stems from appearance. The ace suggests command, the queen suggests balance. Together, they seem destined for harmony. That visual elegance reinforces a subconscious bias called the halo effect, where beauty implies goodness. Many players extend this bias to cards. They overvalue hands that look attractive and undervalue ones that look plain. The discipline of professional play is learning to separate image from substance. A ragged hand like 7-6 suited may outperform ace-queen in certain spots, but only the calm analytical player can see it. False confidence also feeds on social perception. Around the table, players talk about premium hands, and ace-queen is always mentioned in that group. When others treat it as strong, the ego resists folding it. This social validation pressures decisions, especially for developing players. They fear looking weak. They chase respect through aggression. Yet the professionals earn respect through silence and timing, not through showmanship. Folding ace-queen in the right moment requires courage greater than any bold bluff. Emotion intensifies this dynamic further. The moment you pick up ace-queen, your brain releases a small dose of reward. It feels like an opportunity. That emotional high nudges you toward action, a raise here, a call there, a reluctant continuation on the flop. You convince yourself that the board favors you, that the opponent must be bluffing. Each small act of self-deception builds upon the last, until you are trapped in a pot that no longer serves reason. Recognizing this chain of emotion is the first step toward breaking it. Professionals combat false confidence through preflop routines. Before acting, they ask the same quiet questions. What position am I in? What does the opponent's range look like? What story will I tell if I raise? This structure creates a pause between feeling and action. That pause is where wisdom lives. The difference between an amateur and a professional is not the ability to calculate odds, it is the ability to slow down when excitement rises. Calm thought is stronger than reflex. Post-flop, false confidence appears when ace-queen hits top pair. The player feels vindicated. The ego says, "I knew it." They bet without purpose, turning a manageable situation into an expensive one. Professionals recognize this emotional spike and immediately moderate. They know that one pair rarely wins huge pots against thinking opponents. Their focus shifts from winning chips to protecting equity. They fold when the story turns against them, not because they are scared, but because they trust structure over emotion. False confidence can also disguise itself as discipline. Sometimes players tell themselves they are being aggressive for the sake of balance, when in truth they are still acting from pride. True confidence does not need justification. It moves naturally from information. False confidence needs constant reassurance. It argues with logic and insists that the hand deserves to win. Professionals sense this inner argument and let it fade. They play in quiet rhythm, detached from need or validation. The long-term goal is not to suppress confidence, but to refine it. Confidence in poker should feel peaceful, not loud. It should exist as a quiet certainty, built from experience and observation. When you reach that state, ace-queen loses its spell. It becomes just another hand, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, always situational. You will still feel the pull of excitement when you see it, but that excitement no longer controls you. It becomes background noise, a reminder of how far you have come. The psychology of false confidence reveals the deeper truth about poker. The game is not about mastering others, it is about mastering yourself. Ace-queen, with all its elegance, becomes a test of this mastery. The player who learns to feel excitement without acting on it, who learns to recognize illusion before it costs them, has taken a step toward true professionalism. In the end, confidence is not found in winning big pots, but in staying calm when temptation whispers that you cannot lose. Chapter 5: Suited versus offsuit dynamics. Not all ace-queens are equal. To the untrained player, the difference between suited and offsuit may seem small, a cosmetic variation in color. To professionals, that difference defines how the hand should be played, when it gains flexibility, and when it must be treated with restraint. Understanding the gap between ace-queen suited and ace-queen offsuit teaches subtle judgment. It transforms raw knowledge into feel, the calm intuition that separates structure from chaos. Ace-queen suited carries beauty beyond appearance. The shared suit creates hidden value through potential. It can form flushes, straight draws, and backdoor equity that support balanced aggression. These invisible advantages allow a player to continue on more boards without overcommitting. Professionals appreciate that flexibility. They use it to apply measured pressure while maintaining control. Suited versions of ace-queen invite creativity, but they still demand patience. They are not weapons to swing wildly, but tools to sculpt with precision. Ace-queen offsuit, by contrast, is a sharper instrument with fewer safety nets. It wins or loses more directly. Without the possibility of flushes, its post-flop survival depends mostly on making top pair. When that top pair forms, the hand can still be dominated. Professionals understand this structural vulnerability and adapt. They play ace-queen offsuit more cautiously in early positions, avoiding inflated pots without clear advantage. Its power lies in information, not deception. The simplest way to view the difference is through equity realization. Suited hands realize more of their potential because they connect with boards in subtle ways. Backdoor flush possibilities create semi-bluffs that can win pots even when the hand misses entirely. Offsuit versions lack those doors to escape through. When they miss, they must surrender. Professionals embrace this surrender with calm acceptance. Folding is part of the process, not a failure. Suitedness also affects preflop decisions. Ace-queen suited can be defended more often against 3-bets because its playability post-flop remains higher. When stacks are deep, this version thrives in position. Ace-queen offsuit, however, becomes fragile in the same spot. It plays poorly when out of position and can lose large pots when dominated. Professionals recognize that difference and build ranges around it. They fold the offsuit combination to aggression that they would calmly call with the suited one. Another important distinction appears in multiway pots. In these situations, raw card strength decreases while implied odds increase. Suited ace-queen performs better because it can create disguised monsters. Offsuit ace-queen often suffers, caught between strong pairs and coordinated boards. Professionals avoid marginal spots with offsuit combinations when several players are involved. They wait for cleaner opportunities, where initiative and isolation make their decisions easier. Psychologically, many players overvalue the offsuit version because they assume the ace itself guarantees safety. This mental shortcut leads to long-term leaks. A strong ace may dominate weak players, but it cannot protect you from better ones. Professionals learn to see beyond the face value of the cards. They measure each hand through its structural balance, aggression potential versus risk exposure. Ace-queen suited offers balance. Ace-queen offsuit often tilts toward imbalance, unless supported by position and rhythm. In tournament play, the suited version becomes even more valuable. Shorter stacks magnify the worth of hands that can flop strong draws. When chips are scarce, every ounce of flexibility matters. Ace-queen suited can double through hidden strength, while the offsuit version often meets confrontation head-on. In cash games, where stacks run deeper and post-flop play extends longer, this same principle holds. Suitedness is safety. Offsuit is clarity. Both have their place, but one must know which path the situation demands. The key is never to let suitedness become an excuse for recklessness. Just because a hand can make a flush does not mean it will. Professionals use that potential as background support, not as justification for aggression. They balance expectation with realism. A suited hand may add comfort, but comfort must never replace logic. The calm player treats the flush draw as a bonus, not a goal. For developing players, one helpful exercise is to treat ace-queen suited as a teacher of subtlety. It demonstrates how small differences in composition change the entire structure of a decision tree. When you recognize that difference instinctively, your whole range becomes more accurate. Each decision starts to reflect the quiet awareness of texture, depth, and proportion. You begin to think like a professional, not in absolutes, but in gradients. Ace-queen offsuit, meanwhile, becomes the teacher of restraint. It reminds you that not every strong hand deserves aggression. Sometimes the best play is to control the pot, to keep decisions small and clear. By respecting its limits, you protect your stack from unnecessary damage. When you fold it correctly, you are not surrendering, you are exercising control over variance. Ultimately, suited and offsuit ace-queens are two faces of the same lesson. One rewards creativity, the other demands humility. The true professional balances both mindsets. They play suited combinations with composed confidence and offsuit versions with measured caution. The difference between them may be one color on the card, but in the quiet world of professional poker, that single shade defines the line between safe precision and self-inflicted danger. Chapter 6: Positional Awareness. Every hand in poker changes shape depending on where you sit. Ace-queen, more than most, transforms completely through position. In one seat it becomes a weapon of value, in another, a liability waiting to be exposed. Professionals learn early that position is not a suggestion, but a foundation. It is the invisible force that turns average hands into profitable ones, and strong hands into disasters when ignored. Understanding how ace-queen behaves across positions allows calm, consistent control rather than reactive play. Position means information. The later you act, the more you know about your opponent's intentions. Early position forces you to speak first, blind to what lies behind. When you hold ace-queen under the gun, you open into the unknown. You might meet aggression from players with stronger hands, or find yourself out of position for the rest of the hand. Even when the hand begins strong, the disadvantage of acting first turns it fragile. Professionals respect this imbalance. They treat early position ace-queen as a defensive start rather than a declaration of power. Middle position brings a little light. You can see a few players' actions before you, but danger still lurks. Here, ace-queen demands balance. Raise when conditions are calm and the table passive, but tighten when aggressive players sit to your left. The goal is not to play the hand by habit, but to adapt to rhythm. Professionals evaluate each orbit individually. They understand that even a premium hand changes value depending on who remains to act. Awareness of table flow matters as much as card strength. Late position, especially the cutoff and button, transforms ace-queen entirely. Acting near last gives you the advantage of vision. You see folds, hesitations, and bet sizing before committing. Here, the hand becomes a controlled instrument of pressure. Professionals use it to isolate weaker opponents, collect blinds, and build small, safe pots with initiative. The strength of ace-queen grows when accompanied by information. It becomes not just a hand, but a statement of awareness. Still, they maintain respect. Overplaying in position can turn control into chaos if ego interferes. The blinds are the mirror opposite. When forced to act last pre-flop and first afterward, ace-queen loses much of its flexibility. From the small blind, every decision carries risk. Raise too wide and you build big pots out of position. Call too often, and you surrender initiative. The big blind offers slightly more comfort, since you already invested chips, but the same problem remains: you must act before others. Professionals often fold ace-queen offsuit to big raises from strong positions for this reason. It is not fear but recognition of structure. Positional awareness also influences post-flop behavior. In position, you can control pot size through choice. You decide whether to check back, bet for value, or float with potential. Out of position, those options shrink. You are reacting to pressure rather than applying it. Even with top pair, out-of-position ace-queen struggles to realize full value because your opponent always acts with more knowledge. Professionals manage this by adjusting bet sizes, favoring pot control, and timing over emotion. They build their strategy around patience. The power of position lies in tempo. When you act last, you can see the rhythm of the hand unfold. You can feel whether your opponent is confident or uncertain. You can match their energy without exposing yourself. Poker at its highest levels becomes less about raw aggression and more about timing. Ace-queen thrives when timing aligns with position. It falters when forced to lead blind into resistance. Professionals build their games around this principle, never letting excitement override structure. A helpful way to visualize position is through light and shadow. Early position exists in darkness, where information is scarce. Late position lives in light, where every movement is visible. The best players wait for light before stepping forward. They fold hands like ace-queen in the dark, not because they lack courage, but because they understand that profit lives in clarity. When you see the table this way, poker slows down. Decisions feel calmer, more deliberate, and less emotional. Another lesson of positional awareness is patience across orbit cycles. You will not always be in the best seat. Sometimes ace-queen will appear while you are out of position, tempting you to play it anyway. Professionals resist that temptation. They know that poker rewards waiting. Letting one hand go today creates space for a better opportunity tomorrow. Folding is not missing out. It is choosing the right moment to strike when all variables align. Positional mastery with ace-queen means more than acting last. It means understanding how awareness changes everything. In late position, you can see fear and hesitation. In early position, you learn to trust structure over impulse. In the blinds, you practice humility. Every seat teaches a different kind of discipline. The professional uses these experiences to form emotional balance. They do not chase strength through cards, but through control of timing and space. Ace-queen teaches that power in poker is not absolute. It is relative to when you act. Each decision carries a rhythm. Each position carries a mood. When you align your play with that rhythm, even a difficult hand becomes peaceful to manage. The quiet player who learns to respect position soon discovers that many of poker's hardest decisions solve themselves. Awareness of where you sit is awareness of where your strength truly lies. Chapter 7: Early Position Strategy. When the dealer places the button and the blinds settle, early position becomes the seat of truth. It is where poker begins and where mistakes are most expensive. Holding ace-queen here tests your discipline more than your courage. Many players see two royal cards and instinctively raise, but professionals pause. They understand that from under the gun or the next seat over, ace-queen walks a thin line between strength and risk. Early position strategy is not about proving confidence. It is about surviving the orbit with structure intact. In early position, you act before nearly everyone. There are still 6 or more players left to act behind you, many capable of holding stronger hands. Your raise carries information, but it also carries exposure. When you open with ace-queen under the gun, you must accept the possibility of facing re-raises from superior holdings like ace-king, pocket queens, or kings. This awareness transforms your mindset. Instead of seeing ace-queen as an automatic open, you see it as a conditional choice. Professionals raise with clarity and fold to aggression without hesitation. Their decision is rooted in probability, not pride. The first rule of early position play is range discipline. The tighter your position, the narrower your opening range must be. Strong players treat ace-queen offsuit as borderline here. Some fold it altogether in full ring games, preferring suited combinations for their extra post-flop flexibility. The difference may seem subtle, but it defines the quality of decision-making that separates long-term winners from consistent losers. Suited ace-queen can connect with more flops. Offsuit often leaves you stranded. Respecting this nuance keeps your range clean and your results stable. Your goal when opening early is not to win the blinds but to enter the pot with initiative against predictable ranges. When you raise, size it consistently, strong enough to thin the field, but small enough to keep control. Professionals avoid the temptation to protect ace-queen with oversized bets. Bigger openings rarely scare away better hands. They only build larger pots out of position. The purpose of the raise is structure, not intimidation. Play as though the chips are a language, not a weapon. Facing aggression after you raise is where early position teaches humility. A re-raise from a tight opponent often means you are behind. There is no shame in folding. Professionals do not cling to hands out of ego. They fold ace-queen even after investing chips, because they understand that saving money is as valuable as winning it. Amateurs see folding as surrender. Professionals see it as control. Poker is not a war of hands. It is a conversation of ranges. In early position, the best response is often silence. Calling 3 bets with ace-queen in early position is a delicate matter. Without position, the hand's value drops sharply. Suited versions may call when stacks are deep and the opponent capable of bluffing, but offsuit versions should usually fold. The reason is simple. You will miss the flop 2/3 of the time and act first every street thereafter. That combination invites costly mistakes. Professional players protect their mental energy by avoiding such traps entirely. They do not fight unwinnable battles. They conserve focus for profitable spots. Even when no one re-raises, early position demands post-flop restraint. Most of your opponents will act after you. Every bet you make must account for what they might do next. Continuation betting should be selective, not automatic. On dry boards, a small c-bet may take the pot. On coordinated boards, checking with ace-queen, even after raising preflop, demonstrates maturity. The calm player chooses control over impulse. Pot management is the foundation of long-term profit. Stack depth also shapes your early position plan. With deeper stacks, ace-queen loses relative value because implied losses grow. The deeper you play, the more punishment you take when dominated. In shorter stack situations, however, it gains strength because commitment decisions happen earlier. Professionals adjust seamlessly, never tying emotion to a single line of play. They think in variables: position, stack, opponent. The more variables you master, the clearer your decisions become. Table texture further refines your approach. Against passive tables, opening ace-queen early is safer, because aggression behind you is rare. Against aggressive fields, folding becomes strength. Professionals constantly update this read, orbit after orbit. They never play from habit. They play from awareness. Their actions look consistent because their thinking stays flexible. Consistency is not rigidity. It is the outward appearance of an inner calm. Ultimately, Early position strategy with ace-queen is a study in humility. You will fold it more often than you expect. You will raise and fold to re-raises without regret. You will check flops where amateurs charge forward. Each small act of restraint builds your long-term edge. Poker is a game of survival before it is a game of conquest. The players who last the longest are not the ones who dominate every hand, but the ones who minimize loss when their position betrays them. When you look down at ace-queen in the first seat, breathe. Feel the excitement, then let it pass. You are not obligated to play just because the cards look beautiful. Strength is not found in motion, but in stillness. Early position is where wisdom begins. When you can let go of a hand that looks royal, you take your first step toward playing like a true professional. Chapter 8: Middle Position Play. Middle position sits between danger and opportunity. It is a seat of transition, where the table begins to open and information becomes clearer, but risk still remains. For ace-queen, this is where the hand starts to breathe. The tight constraints of early positions soften, and your decisions can flow with more rhythm. Professionals treat middle position as a zone of controlled expansion. They widen their range carefully, adding hands like ace-queen suited more confidently, but they still play each situation with calm precision rather than excitement. From middle position, you now have a small advantage. You have seen the actions of the early seats. If they have folded, the path ahead looks safer. This context alone transforms ace-queen from a cautious hand into a playable one. You are no longer blind to what lies behind. You are now a watcher, learning from what has already happened. Professionals thrive in this role. They use the information gained to guide not just whether to raise, but how to structure the rest of the hand. Your standard play with ace-queen in middle position is to open raise. The raise should be consistent with your overall strategy, not larger than necessary, not smaller out of fear. Around 2.5 to 3 times the big blind is enough to claim initiative without drawing unnecessary attention. The purpose of this raise is not aggression for its own sake, but balance. You represent strength while maintaining the flexibility to fold if conditions change. Consistency builds respect, and respect buys fold equity later. Facing a re-raise in middle position requires reflection rather than reaction. You are now more aware of player types behind you. If a tight opponent in late position 3 bets, folding ace-queen offsuit is perfectly acceptable. Even suited versions must be approached with care, especially when stacks are deep. Against looser players or frequent squeezes, a call becomes viable. The professional mindset treats each opponent as a system with tendencies, not as a single obstacle. They analyze patterns, not moments. Post-flop play in middle position rewards patience. When you have raised and are called, you will often face boards that challenge ace-queen structure. Dry flops with low cards invite continuation bets, but connected textures require moderation. Professionals check back when they sense resistance, using position and control to manage pot size. Their goal is not to win every pot, but to lose small when behind and win efficiently when ahead. In poker, efficiency is the quiet form of mastery. Middle position also introduces a concept professionals call range symmetry. From here, both your raising range and the range of players behind you begin to overlap. Hands like ace-king, pocket jacks, and ace-queen all appear in similar combinations. The battle becomes one of interpretation. The professional navigates these mirrored ranges by maintaining emotional neutrality. They avoid overreacting to strength because they know their own range carries similar hands. Awareness creates calm. Calmness builds profit. Another lesson of middle position is tempo control. When action folds to you, you hold the power to set rhythm. A steady raise communicates consistency. A hurried one communicates tension. At a live table, everything about your behavior transmits information. Professionals learn to move deliberately, always at the same speed, never betraying excitement when ace-queen appears. This even tempo allows them to disguise intention and protect their decisions from external influence. Middle position also offers the chance to exploit passivity. Many players still trapped in early position thinking fold too often when you raise from this seat. Ace-queen benefits from this imbalance. Your open steals blinds more often, builds small pots in your favor, and places you in situations where you act with initiative. Yet this power requires restraint. Professionals do not let early success inflate their ego. They remain detached, treating each hand as an independent event. When you are called by the blinds, middle position play becomes a test of structure. You will act second after the flop, giving you partial control but not full. This semi-positional state demands careful adjustment. Bet when the board favors your range, check when it does not. Avoid autopilot. Ace-queen without a pair can easily transform from a promising hand into an expensive bluff if you ignore board texture. Professionals survive these moments through awareness rather than stubbornness. In multi-way pots, your role changes again. When more than one player calls your raise, ace-queen's value diminishes. The more players involved, the smaller your chance of clean victory. Here your focus shifts from offense to defense. Professionals play smaller pots in these spots, emphasizing observation over action. They understand that survival and clarity matter more than domination. The essence of middle position strategy is measured confidence. You are free to act, but you are not yet safe. Ace-queen serves as a teacher of balance, a reminder that strength without discipline creates vulnerability. Each decision you make in middle position should reflect quiet awareness of position, of opponent behavior, of board texture, and of emotional control. Professionals move through this zone like steady currents, adjusting to pressure without resistance. By the time you reach this level of understanding, ace-queen becomes more than a starting hand. It becomes a signal of your maturity as a player. You raise with intent, fold with grace, and call with plan. You no longer react to the beauty of the cards, but to the truth of the situation. In middle position, poker slows to a calm rhythm, one built on patience, observation, and quiet strength. This is where the game begins to feel peaceful, where skill replaces instinct, and where ace-queen starts to serve you rather than the other way around. Chapter 9. Late Position Advantage. Late position is where ace-queen finally comes alive. After the blinds, the early seats, and the middle positions have all acted, you sit near the end of the line with a clear view of the field. This advantage is not just about order of action, it is about clarity. Late position gives you light, and light reveals truth. The fewer players left to act, the fewer unknowns you must face. Ace-queen transforms from a cautious hand into a commanding one, but only when handled with the same calm discipline that guided earlier positions. On the cutoff or the button, ace-queen becomes an ideal tool of initiative. When action folds to you, raising is almost always correct. You apply pressure while minimizing risk, forcing the blinds and any remaining players to react. The power here lies not in brute strength, but in information. You already know the story so far. Who folded? Who hesitated? who seems restless. Professionals use these signals to tailor their decisions. A single glance or timing tell from an opponent becomes enough to justify the move. Late position poker is played through awareness, as much as mathematics. The primary goal in late position is to control the hand's rhythm. With ace-queen, you can raise wide but play narrow after resistance. This means you enter pots often, but release them easily when danger appears. The key is detachment. Professionals understand that their edge does not come from winning every pot, but from maximizing good ones. When a small blind or big blind re-raises strongly, they step back and re-evaluate. Folding ace-queen here is not weakness, it is wisdom. Their confidence comes from knowing they will find better spots again soon. Late position also allows you to exploit weaker players. Many opponents in the blinds defend too loosely, calling with inferior aces or speculative hands. Against them, ace-queen dominates the calling range. You can continuation bet flops confidently on most textures, knowing your high cards often remain best. However, the calm player still controls pace. They do not inflate pots unnecessarily. When resistance emerges, they slow down. The advantage of position is not aggression, it is precision. Another subtle benefit of late position comes from observing showdowns over time. By watching hands reveal at the table, you collect quiet data. You learn who defends too wide, who folds too easily, and who traps with strength. This catalogue of behavior becomes a hidden edge. When ace-queen arrives again, you already know how to adjust. Professionals build these mental notes slowly, like an artist layering paint. Each observation adds depth, allowing future decisions to unfold naturally. Post-flop, late position gives you the privilege of choice. You can decide when to bet, when to check back, and when to apply pressure. If you miss the flop entirely, a small continuation bet often takes it down. If you connect, you can extract value with careful sizing. The professional approach emphasizes pot control over emotion. They use their position to see one more card cheaply, or to induce bluffs from opponents out of rhythm. Each street becomes an opportunity for guided observation, rather than forced action. Late position also reduces emotional noise. Because you act last, you have time to breathe. You can absorb the table's tempo, read physical cues, and make clear decisions. There is no rush, no panic, no need to guess wildly. You watch the story unfold, then decide how to respond. In this space, ace-queen becomes smooth to play. Even difficult boards feel manageable when you know that your decision closes the action. That sense of control is what professionals rely on most. The greatest danger in late position is overconfidence. Players often mistake positional power for invincibility. They open too wide, 3-bet too lightly, or float too often. Ace-queen, while strong, is still vulnerable to domination. Professionals never let comfort dull their awareness. They respect the balance between freedom and restraint. Position grants advantage, not immunity. Every decision still depends on context, stack sizes, tendencies, and table flow. A calm player treats late position as a privilege to be earned, not a guarantee of profit. In tournaments, the value of position becomes even more pronounced. With antes in play, every round offers opportunities to collect dead money. Ace-queen in late position excels here, stealing blinds and antes with low confrontation. But when faced with a reshove or 3-bet from a short stack, professionals immediately recenter. They compare ranges, stack depths, and ICM pressure before acting. The calm mind sees through the tension. The impatient one gives away equity. Cash games bring a slightly different rhythm. Deep stacks allow for post-flop maneuvering, and position amplifies this edge. With ace-queen you can float flops, apply pressure on turns, or induce mistakes on rivers. The secret is to let position guide the narrative. When you have information, every line you take has purpose. When you lack it, you retreat quietly. Professional poker is not a show of dominance. It is a sequence of correct choices made with serenity. Late position teaches the beauty of patience rewarded. All the folds you made earlier, the careful restraint from early and middle seats, lead to this moment. Now you act with freedom, built on discipline. You can raise with clarity, observe with composure, and win with elegance. Ace-queen becomes not just a hand, but a reminder that awareness is power. Position does not make you lucky, it makes you prepared. When you play from this place of understanding, the table slows, the noise fades, and every decision feels clean. Chapter 10. Button and Blind Scenarios. The button and blinds represent the bookends of poker. One gives you the greatest power in the game, and the other takes it away. Ace-queen lives two very different lives here. On the button, it becomes a graceful instrument of control. In the blinds, it becomes a test of restraint. Understanding how to shift between these roles teaches you how to manage rhythm, ego, and structure. Professionals approach these positions not through habit, but through awareness of their purpose. When you sit on the button, you hold the privilege of perfect vision. Every player has acted before you. The board of possibilities has already formed. This is where ace-queen feels at home. A standard open from the button with ace-queen is more than justified. You can raise smaller than usual, knowing that only the blinds remain. Even if one calls, you will always act last after the flop. That simple fact transforms your hand's value. You control tempo, pot size, and narrative. The button allows you to use ace-queen as both an offensive and defensive tool. Offensively, you can pressure the blinds with constant small raises. Defensively, you can control variance by checking back marginal flops. Professionals view the button as an opportunity to practice balance. They do not force action just because they have advantage. They flow with what the table gives. The best players on the button look calm, even indifferent, because their confidence comes from position, not emotion. When opponents defend their blinds, ace-queen performs beautifully in isolation. You dominate most of their calling hands, weaker aces, Broadway connectors, and small pairs. Yet even in comfort, restraint remains vital. Overconfidence on the button leads to unnecessary confrontation. Professionals use position to extract thin value quietly, not to prove dominance. They keep pots manageable, building small edges that compound over time. Their focus is on rhythm, not fireworks. The small blind, however, changes everything. Acting second to last pre-flop and first after the flop creates a double disadvantage. You must commit more chips while holding less information. Ace-queen here becomes a study in precision. Against early or middle position raises, folding is often correct, especially with the offsuit version. Even suited combinations require strong justification to continue. Professionals know that small blind mistakes cost more than they appear. Every misstep grows in size across multiple streets. When facing action from the button while in the small blind, the story reverses. The temptation to defend aggressively rises, but the same positional truth holds. You will be first to act post-flop. This means your information remains limited, and ace-queen's apparent strength shrinks. The disciplined player chooses selectivity. They 3-bet with clear purpose or fold without hesitation. Calling passively out of the small blind leads to awkward, unprofitable spots. Professionals protect their energy by avoiding these traps. The big blind provides slightly more freedom. You already have chips invested, so defending becomes cheaper. Against smaller button opens, ace-queen suited can be a strong calling hand, capable of dominating the range of weaker holdings. Yet the offsuit version remains cautious. Post-flop play from the big blind still demands strong observation. You act first, which means you must navigate flops without confirmation of your opponent's strength. Professionals turn this challenge into practice for reading patterns. They measure betting frequency, timing, and sizing to deduce stories. One advantage of defending from the big blind is the ability to see cheap flops against late-position steals. When you connect, you can extract value from players who underestimate your range. When you miss, discipline calls for release. The mark of a professional is not how often they win from the big blind, but how little they lose when things go wrong. The calm player treats this position as maintenance, not opportunity. They protect, defend, and release without emotion. Button and blind scenarios also reveal the psychological flow of the table. Players on the button often feel powerful. Players in the blinds often feel attacked. Professionals stay detached from this emotional rhythm. They do not personalize the game. Every orbit gives each player both roles. You will attack and defend, lead and react. The cycle repeats endlessly. The secret is to treat each position as a moment within a larger rhythm. Peace comes from balance. Another subtle lesson arises in these positions: the importance of table image. On the button, frequent raising builds a reputation that can later earn you folds when you hold strong hands. In the blinds, tight defense conveys discipline that discourages future aggression. Professionals build and adjust this image deliberately. Ace-queen supports both goals. It fits naturally into a balanced range, capable of aggression or patience depending on need. In tournaments, the button and blinds create constant opportunities for chip flow. Antes magnify the reward of stealing. Ace-queen on the button becomes one of the most profitable hands in this environment, but its value still depends on execution. Professionals raise with plan, not impulse. When faced with a ratio from a shorter stack, they step back, evaluate stack sizes, and decide with calm precision. In cash games, the same mindset applies. The chips may be deeper, but the principle never changes. Control the pot, respect position, and stay emotionally quiet. The contrast between the button and the blinds defines much of poker's rhythm. One position represents clarity, the other uncertainty. Ace-queen walks this divide perfectly. When used from the button, it rewards awareness. When mishandled from the blinds, it punishes impatience. The lesson is simple yet profound. Position transforms meaning. The same hand that feels powerful in one seat becomes fragile in another. True mastery is the ability to adjust gracefully, to play from light when you have it, and to stay still in shadow when you do not. Chapter 11. Facing 3 bets. Preflop. Few moments in poker test composure, like facing a 3-bet with ace-queen. You begin the hand confident, opening with what feels like a premium holding. Then an opponent raises behind you, challenging that confidence. Emotion flares, curiosity rises, and instinct pushes you to defend your hand. Yet in this moment, professionalism is defined not by strength, but by stillness. Knowing how to react to 3 bets with ace-queen separates players who chase from those who choose wisely. A 3-bet preflop is a declaration of intent. It narrows your opponent's range dramatically. Against tight or disciplined players, that range often consists of the strongest holdings, premium pairs and ace-king. Against more aggressive players, the range widens to include bluffs and suited connectors. Your response must adjust to both. Ace-queen sits on the edge of playability, powerful enough to continue against some ranges but vulnerable against others. Professionals never let ego blur this distinction. They treat each situation as unique. The first step in facing a 3-bet is position awareness. When you open from early position and face a raise from middle or late position, you are usually up against strength. Out of position, ace-queen loses most of its value. Professionals fold here without hesitation, saving chips and energy. In position, however, the same hand gains life. With the ability to act last, you can call and navigate post-flop with more control. Suited versions gain additional justification for this call, while offsuit versions often retreat. The professional mindset sees folding not as fear, but as intelligent allocation of opportunity. Stack depth plays an equally critical role. With shallow stacks around 20 to 30 big blinds, ace-queen becomes simpler to manage. You can often 4-bet, shove profitably against looser opponents, or fold cleanly against tighter ones. The short stack reduces post-flop uncertainty. Deeper stacks complicate things. They expand the room for error and magnify the pain of dominated situations. Professionals understand this scaling effect. They tighten ranges as stacks grow deeper, preferring to avoid large pots where their equity edge is uncertain. Another guiding principle is opponent profiling. Some players 3-bet almost exclusively for value. Others mix in aggression to assert table control. Against the first type, ace-queen rarely performs well. Against the second, it can become a profitable defense. Professionals study tendencies relentlessly. They track frequencies, note hands shown at Showdown, and build quiet mental databases. When a player known for balance 3-bets, they respond cautiously. When a player known for chaos attacks, they call or 4-bet with calm confidence. 4-betting ace-queen requires precision. It should never come from emotion or frustration. The purpose of a 4-bet is to regain initiative, not to prove superiority. Suited versions make better candidates because they can recover equity even when called. Offsuit versions fold more often because they lack playability. Professionals size their 4-bets to send clear messages, small enough to threaten without overcommitting, large enough to command respect. They measure the risk-to-reward ratio rather than acting from impulse. Calling a 3-bet is equally delicate. When you choose to call, your goal is not to outmuscle your opponent, but to outthink them. Use position to your advantage. If the board comes low and disconnected, your ace-queen often remains the best hand. If it brings high cards or dangerous textures, slow down. Control the pot, read reactions, and wait for clarity. Professionals know that most profit comes from avoiding mistakes, not from dramatic confrontations. The emotional side of facing 3-bets cannot be ignored. Many players feel challenged, as if the opponent's raise is a personal attack. They respond with defiance, refusing to back down. Poker punishes this mindset ruthlessly. Professionals detach emotion from competition. A 3-bet is not disrespect, it is data. It tells you something about the player across from you. Use that information instead of reacting to it. Calm reflection turns confrontation into clarity. One of the quiet truths of this situation is that folding ace-queen to a 3-bet often feels worse than it is. You see 2 royal cards and feel that folding them must be wrong. Yet long-term data shows that folding in marginal spots preserves far more chips than it costs. Professionals internalize this truth until it becomes instinct. They no longer debate whether to call out of pride. They let math and memory make the decision for them. Over time, this habit builds unshakable confidence. Facing 3-bets also tests your rhythm. Poker is not a series of disconnected events, but a continuous flow. If you lose one small pot, the game continues. If you fold ace-queen once, another hand will appear. Professionals maintain rhythm by refusing to let a single decision define them. They move forward quietly, unburdened by regret. This mental rhythm keeps their play steady and their judgment clear. The lesson of this chapter is simple but profound. Not every challenge deserves a response. In poker, power often lies in stillness. When an opponent 3-bets, your decision with ace-queen should emerge from structure, not from spark. Fold when the range is strong, call when conditions align, and raise only with clear intent. Every correct fold becomes a silent victory. Every calm decision builds confidence. The professional understands that patience wins where pride fails. In the long run, the quiet player with discipline will always outlast the one who cannot let go. Chapter 12. Deep Stack Dynamics. Deep stacks bring beauty and danger to poker. With more chips behind, the game slows down, decisions multiply, and every mistake grows in size. Ace-queen, a hand that feels so clean at shallow depths, becomes complex when stacks stretch deep. It can win huge pots with precision, or lose entire sessions through overconfidence. Professionals respect this duality. They know that deeper stacks test not mechanical skill, but emotional stability. This chapter explores how to navigate ace-queen in these expanded territories of risk and opportunity. When both players have 100 or more big blinds, the value of initiative and position magnifies. Small edges grow over time, while small errors compound. Ace-queen suited becomes one of the most versatile hands in this environment, capable of semi-bluffing, floating, and turning hidden value on later streets. The offsuit version, however, becomes fragile. Deep play rewards hands that can make strong disguised holdings. Suitedness, connectivity, and implied odds matter more than raw high-card strength. Professionals internalize this shift. They play suited ace-queen fluidly, while tempering enthusiasm for the offsuit combination. The first step to mastering deep stack dynamics is accepting that domination becomes far more punishing. When you hold ace-queen and your opponent holds ace-king, losing one pot can cost not 10 blinds but 200. Every mistake in judgment grows in scale. Professionals do not fear this reality. They adapt. They control pot size carefully, managing risk through bet sizing and rhythm. When deep, they avoid stacking off lightly with top pair. They trade the pursuit of big wins for the protection of long-term stability. Pre-flop, your approach with deep stacks should lean toward precision. In position, ace-queen suited makes an excellent open and a reasonable call to a 3-bet. It thrives on flops where hidden draws emerge. Out of position, restraint takes priority. The deeper the stacks, the greater the disadvantage of acting first. Professionals fold ace-queen offsuit out of position to re-raises that would be easy calls at shorter depths. They understand that deep play amplifies uncertainty and multiplies post-flop mistakes. Post-flop, deep stacks shift the entire decision tree. You cannot rely on automatic continuation bets. You must think in layers. What happens if raised? What happens on later streets? What story you are telling? With ace-queen, this awareness becomes vital. Top pair on the flop does not guarantee safety. It guarantees complexity. Professionals slow the pace. They use smaller bet sizes to keep options open. They plan for 3 streets, not 1. Every decision serves structure, not impulse. One of the key advantages of deep stacks is maneuverability. You have room to apply pressure, to bluff intelligently, and to represent ranges that your opponent fears. Ace-queen suited becomes an excellent candidate for semi-bluffing with backdoor equity. Not because you must bluff, but because your draws carry true potential. The offsuit version, by contrast, rarely fits into balanced bluff ranges. Professionals know this and protect their range integrity by choosing suited combinations for creative play and offsuit combinations for selective aggression. Another challenge of deep stacks is psychological fatigue. Longer hands create mental turbulence. With so much at risk, tension builds quietly. Players with emotional leaks lose discipline late in hands, calling when they know they should fold, raising when patience would profit more. Ace-queen often triggers these lapses because it sits near the boundary between value and danger. Professionals counter this by keeping their breathing and thoughts steady. They treat deep pots as slow processes rather than climactic moments. Composure becomes the edge. Stack depth also affects bet sizing theory. The deeper the stacks, the smaller your bets should become as a percentage of the pot. This counterintuitive principle preserves flexibility and reduces variance. Professionals size their bets like painters, adding fine detail, gentle strokes that create meaning over time. With ace-queen, this control protects from overexposure. It allows them to navigate marginal spots without committing entire stacks unnecessarily. They win through accumulation, not explosion. Multiway pots under deep conditions deserve special caution. The more players in the hand, the more likely someone connects strongly with the board. Ace-queen, powerful in heads-up play, loses clarity here. Professionals avoid speculative multi-way spots with it, especially out of position. They let go early and live to fight with cleaner opportunities. Deep poker is not about playing more hands, it is about playing fewer, but with greater intention. The emotional wisdom of deep stack play lies in patience. With more chips, there is always another orbit, another chance to apply your edge. Professionals use time as their ally. They fold ace-queen in uncomfortable spots and wait. They know that one disciplined decision can preserve hours of work. In deep games, discipline pays interest. At its heart, deep stack poker is a meditation on control. You must hold tension without letting it control you. Ace-queen teaches this balance perfectly. It tempts action, but rewards stillness. When played thoughtfully, it becomes a vehicle for quiet, sustainable profit. When played recklessly, it becomes a mirror of impatience. Professionals choose clarity over chaos. They navigate deep waters with calm, knowing that survival and understanding are worth more than any single pot. Chapter 13. Short Stack Survival. When the stacks shrink and blinds rise, the rhythm of poker changes. There is less room for maneuver, fewer streets to play, and little time for indecision. In these moments, Ace-Queen transforms again, from a hand of balance and subtlety into one of survival and execution. Professionals approach short-stack play with quiet precision. They understand that each decision carries amplified weight, and that the right fold or shove determines not just a pot, but sometimes an entire tournament life. Short stacks simplify the game by compressing choices. When you hold 20 big blinds or fewer, the margin for post-flop play nearly disappears. Your goal becomes clarity. Act cleanly, act decisively, and accept the outcome. Ace-Queen suits this environment perfectly. Its raw equity and dominance against weaker aces make it a natural candidate for aggression, but only within structure. Professionals rely on prepared ranges, not impulse. Their calm under pressure makes short-stack play feel less like gambling and more like controlled math. Preflop decisions form the backbone of short-stack survival. With 15 to 20 big blinds, Ace-Queen moves into the upper tier of value hands. In unopened pots, it should almost always be raised or shoved, depending on stack depth and position. Against early position opens, your response becomes context-driven. Facing a raise from a tight player, folding Ace-Queen offsuit can be correct. Facing a raise from a looser opponent or a steal attempt, reshoving becomes profitable. Professionals view this not as emotion, but as execution. Their choices follow clear thresholds of equity and risk. Position still matters, even when short. On the button, Ace-Queen becomes a weapon of freedom. You can apply maximum pressure on the blinds, knowing that their ranges are wide. In the small blind, your hand remains strong enough to jam over most raises, but only if fold equity remains. The big blind presents a simpler path. If you face a small open, Ace-Queen dominates the range often enough to commit confidently. The key is consistency, the same calm rhythm, whether you win or lose. Tournament players face the additional weight of ICM pressure, where chip preservation becomes as important as accumulation. Professionals adapt by tightening slightly when survival value outweighs chip value. They fold Ace-Queen in spots where calling could cripple their tournament equity. This discipline is not fear, it is understanding. The strongest players view their stack like oxygen, to be conserved when scarce and spent only when necessary. Each shove with Ace-Queen becomes an intentional breath, not a desperate gasp. Post-flop play with shallow stacks should be brief and structured. Most hands resolve within 1 or 2 betting rounds. When you raise and are called, the flop usually determines commitment. If you connect with top pair, you are often pot committed. If you miss completely, you let it go. Professionals avoid the gray areas, where uncertainty breeds mistakes. They know that survival depends on conserving focus for clear, binary decisions. Ace-Queen's simplicity under pressure becomes an ally. Short stacks also highlight emotional control. Many players panic when their chips dwindle. They play too many hands out of fear of blinding out. Professionals reverse that instinct. They slow their breathing, wait for hands like Ace-Queen, and execute without hesitation when the time arrives. There is serenity in decisiveness. When you move all in, you have already accepted the outcome. The mind becomes quiet. The decision once made is final, and that calmness often radiates strength that unsettles opponents. Ace-Queen's value increases dramatically when fold equity exists. Professionals learn to recognize these moments. When stacks behind are similar or shorter, your shove forces difficult decisions. Opponents must risk their survival to call. This psychological leverage gives ace-queen power beyond its cards. Even when called, you retain strong equity against most ranges. The balance between risk and reward is clean, not emotional. Each shove is an act of logic. In cash games, short stack play carries similar lessons, but less finality. You can always reload, but discipline still matters. Professionals treat each buy-in as a microcosm of the same structure, conserving, selecting, and striking with precision. They use ace-queen as part of a streamlined short stack range, applying pressure at the right frequencies while avoiding fancy play. Even in flexible formats, they never confuse survival with passivity. The short stack demands action, but measured action. The emotional rhythm of short stacks reveals who truly trusts their structure. Amateurs tilt, rushing decisions to escape discomfort. Professionals breathe, wait, and act with purpose. They understand that ace-queen under pressure is a moment of clarity, not chaos. Every decision echoes a lesson. You do not control cards, only conduct. When the blinds grow large and time feels short, ace-queen becomes both sword and shield. It cuts through weak holdings yet protects you from reckless panic. Professionals honor its balance. They play it firmly, fold it wisely, and never let emotion dictate timing. Short stack survival is not about clinging to chips, it is about trusting structure. Each shove and fold with ace-queen is a meditation in courage. Calm, measured, and built on years of understanding that real strength lies not in hope, but in precision. Chapter 14. Tournament versus cash game context. Ace-queen does not behave the same way in every environment. The difference between tournaments and cash games changes everything about how you play it, from preflop structure to emotional rhythm. The cards are identical, yet their meaning shifts with each format's incentives. Professionals approach the two settings like different languages. In cash games, the focus is precision and profit. In tournaments, the focus is survival and adaptation. The same hand must therefore live two lives, shaped by context rather than ego. In a cash game, chips represent direct money. Each decision carries fixed value. You can always reload, which creates freedom to explore thin edges. Ace-queen in this setting becomes a long-term investment tool. It is used to exploit mistakes and accumulate gradual equity. A single misstep costs dollars, not destiny. This freedom allows professionals to play ace-queen more aggressively, in favorable spots, opening frequently, calling 3-bets in position, and floating flops with plans for later streets. Their goal is steady growth, not elimination avoidance. In tournaments, chips take on a second layer of meaning. Once you lose them, you cannot replace them. Survival becomes currency. Professionals switch their mindset completely. They understand that tournament chips are worth more when you have fewer of them, and less when you have more. This non-linear value forces restraint. Ace-queen, a borderline powerhouse in cash, becomes situational in tournaments. Its worth fluctuates with stack depth, blind structure, and payout implications. The calm player adjusts without hesitation. The first contrast lies in preflop aggression. In cash games, deep stacks favor creative play. You can call re-raises, maneuver postflop, and use ace-queen suited to extract value across multiple streets. In tournaments, stack sizes are usually shallow, relative to blinds. This compresses decision trees. Professionals lean on push-fold logic, especially as the blinds rise. They raise less often for deception and more often for efficiency. Every move must account for survival probability. The same hand that might call comfortably in a cash game could become a disciplined fold in a tournament. Risk tolerance also diverges. Cash game players evaluate decisions by expected value over infinite repetitions. They can endure short-term losses for long-term gain. Tournament players must weigh variance against immediate elimination. The professional mind separates these philosophies cleanly. In a cash game, ace-queen suited becomes a candidate for calculated aggression, used to build image and extract value from dominated ranges. In a tournament, the same hand might fold preflop to a shove from a short stack when ICM pressure looms. Context replaces instinct. Another key difference is the psychology of loss. In a cash game, losing a stack stings but does not end your session. In a tournament, one mistake can erase hours of progress. This emotional weight amplifies the importance of timing. Professionals never let that tension push them toward recklessness. They play ace-queen in tournaments with the same composure they use in cash games, but with deeper respect for consequences. Their calm presence helps them make disciplined folds that others cannot. Folding a hand that looks beautiful but feels wrong becomes a badge of professionalism. Position and table dynamics shift subtly between the two as well. In cash games, you often play against the same opponents for extended periods, allowing you to gather data and exploit habits. Ace-queen becomes a tool for long-term manipulation, raising more against frequent folders, tightening against stubborn callers. In tournaments, tables break and change. You must adapt instantly to new opponents. Professionals replace familiarity with pattern recognition, reading tendencies within a few orbits. They do not rely on memory, they rely on awareness. Short stacks bring the sharpest contrast. In cash games, short stacks are tactical tools, manageable, renewable, and used to apply pressure. In tournaments, they are existential threats. Ace-queen near the bubble, or final table requires precision. A shove can double you up, or end your run. Professionals weigh not only the math, but the moment. They calculate ICM pressure, payout ladders, and stack distributions before acting. The decision is both technical and emotional discipline in one breath. The mindset around bluffing also changes. Cash players use ace-queen suited as part of balanced bluff ranges, turning missed draws into pressure tools. In tournaments, bluffing loses value when elimination risk outweighs chip gain. Professionals adjust frequency naturally. They protect their stack by valuing survival over style. The calmness that defines them does not come from avoiding risk, but from choosing the right time to take it. Even post-flop philosophy differs. In cash games, you can play long, deep hands, bet multiple streets, represent balanced ranges, and test opponents repeatedly. In tournaments, the shallow nature of most stacks shortens the story. Post-flop play becomes cleaner, often reduced to a single bet or shove. Professionals tailor their strategies like a musician changing tempo mid-song. They accept the structure rather than resist it. The unifying thread between both forms of poker is patience. Whether protecting a tournament life or managing bankroll swings in a cash session, ace-queen demands the same virtues: restraint, observation, and detachment. Professionals know that the best players adapt seamlessly between worlds. They carry composure from the cash tables into tournaments, and precision from tournaments back into cash. Ace-queen becomes a bridge between the two formats, a reminder that no environment defines you, only your discipline within it. In one setting, you play it to extract value. In another, you play it to stay alive. Both approaches lead toward the same truth. Calm awareness outperforms excitement. When you can fold ace-queen in a tournament and raise it boldly in a cash game without hesitation, you have learned the language of context. Fluent in risk, fluent in restraint, and fluent in the quiet confidence that binds them both. Chapter 15. The Dominated Hand Problem. Every poker player eventually meets the quiet heartbreak of domination. It is a feeling that creeps in slowly, disguised by hope. You hold ace-queen, the flop brings an ace, and confidence fills your chest. Then, when the chips go in and the cards turn over, you see the truth, ace-king. It is a calm kind of defeat, not loud or sudden, but deeply instructive. Domination is one of poker's most subtle lessons, and ace-queen is its most frequent messenger. To be dominated means more than simply being behind. It means your hand shares the same top card as a stronger one, with no chance to overtake when that card connects. Ace-queen's beauty lies in its pairing of power and vulnerability. It looks strong enough to challenge anything, yet often sits just below the real monsters. The professional learns to recognize domination before it happens. They fold earlier, control pots more gently, and measure risk through structure rather than emotion. The first step to managing domination is awareness of ranges. When a tight opponent raises under the gun, their range is filled with hands that crush ace-queen, ace-king, aces, and high pairs. When you hold ace-queen in that spot, you must detach from its appearance. Professionals fold here without a trace of hesitation. They know that the goal is not to prove courage, but to preserve equity. Folding a hand that looks strong is one of the hardest acts in poker, but it is also one of the most profitable over time. Domination teaches humility in decision-making. When you recognize that an opponent's range overlaps heavily with yours, you learn to play the margins rather than the middle. Ace-queen thrives when it dominates weaker aces, but it collapses when facing better ones. Professionals adjust their aggression according to information. They no longer rely on visual strength. Their choices come from probabilities, opponent tendencies, and position. They turn uncertainty into patience. Preflop, domination avoidance means being selective with rear raises. Many amateurs instinctively 3-bet ace-queen to assert dominance. Professionals pause first. They consider stack depth and player type. Against opponents who rarely fold to aggression, re-raising only builds pots that favor stronger hands. Calling in position becomes the better play, or folding entirely when out of position. The professional's ego does not demand participation, it demands clarity. Domination loses its sting when recognized early. Post-flop, the dominated hand problem, intensifies through emotional bias. When you hit top pair with ace-queen, the instinct is to believe you are ahead. The board feels cooperative, your cards look perfect, and folding seems unthinkable. Professionals feel the same emotion, but separated from their action. They analyze betting patterns, timing, and texture. If the opponent's story represents consistent strength, they release the hand. They understand that letting go of top pair against pressure saves far more than it costs. One hallmark of mastery is the ability to fold winning hands in the short term, to win over the long term. Sometimes your opponent will bluff, and you will fold the best hand. This does not matter. The professional knows that correct process always beats emotional reaction. In the next 100 similar spots, that same fold will save stacks. Domination punishes the stubborn. It rewards the structured. The quiet discipline to fold a hand that looks too good to fold is what separates amateurs from true students of the game. Understanding domination also reshapes how professionals think about variance. They no longer judge success by whether ace-queen wins or loses a single pot. They judge it by how often they avoid the traps of superior ranges. Over thousands of hands, folding ace-queen at the right times reduces variance and stabilizes bankroll growth. The game becomes less about drama and more about rhythm, a steady flow of small gains built on avoidance of large losses. Psychologically, domination reveals the tension between pride and patience. The ego resists the idea that a beautiful hand could be worthless. It clings to the dream of outplaying the opponent, even when logic says retreat. Professionals train their minds to find satisfaction in correct folds. Each disciplined decision reinforces their confidence in structure. They learn to see value, not only in pots won, but in disasters prevented. Over time, this reframing transforms frustration into peace. Domination also offers a valuable inverse lesson: how to exploit others who fall into the same trap. When you hold ace-king and sense that an opponent cannot fold ace-queen, you can extract maximum value. You understand the emotional hold the hand has over them, because you have felt it yourself. Professionals turn empathy into advantage. They do not mock mistakes, they study them. The pattern of domination becomes both a caution and a weapon. The long-term wisdom of the dominated hand problem extends beyond strategy. It mirrors the larger philosophy of poker, that appearances mislead, strength is situational, and peace comes from understanding limits. Ace-queen teaches this truth more clearly than any other hand. Each time you resist the urge to overplay it, you build trust in your process. You learn that power in poker does not come from forcing results, but from flowing with probabilities. When you look back on your sessions, the hands that will define your growth are rarely the ones you won. They are the ones you folded. The times you felt the pull of confidence, saw the top pair, and let it go anyway. Those moments are quiet victories, invisible to others but transformative within. Domination will always exist in poker, but it only controls those who refuse to see it. The professional accepts it, adjusts to it, and moves forward with calm understanding that sometimes the strongest move is not to fight, but to fold. Chapter 16. Flop Scenarios. Hitting top pair. There is a unique comfort in seeing an ace fall on the flop when you hold ace-queen. The tension that built pre-flop seems to dissolve. You feel centered again, convinced that the board has chosen you. Yet for professionals, this is precisely the moment when discipline must rise. Hitting top pair with ace-queen is not a license to celebrate. It is a signal to slow down, measure strength, and manage the hand with quiet control. Top pair looks like a place of safety, but in poker, safety often hides danger. When you hit top pair, your hand becomes defined by kicker strength and board texture. If the board reads ace-7-3 rainbow, you hold what appears to be a strong hand, but your vulnerability still exists. You are ahead of most weaker aces, yet crushed by ace-king or sets. Professionals learn to view these scenarios, not emotionally, but structurally. Their first instinct is not to build a pot, but to control one. Every bet, every check, and every call must preserve flexibility. The goal is to protect equity, not to prove power. Pot control becomes the central concept in these moments. In position, you have the luxury of choice. You can check behind to induce bluffs, or bet small for protection. Out of position, you must navigate carefully to avoid being trapped. Professionals rarely inflate pots early without strong reason. They know that the more chips in the middle, the more exact their reads must become. By keeping pots smaller, they leave room for adjustment when pressure appears on later streets. Bet sizing tells a story. A small continuation bet says you believe your hand is ahead, but vulnerable. A check says you are gathering information. A large bet often narrows your own range unnecessarily. Professionals treat bet sizing like a language, soft, controlled, and precise. When they bet, it is never out of habit, but intention. The tone of each decision remains calm, measured, and self-aware. This serenity turns ace-queen from a guessing hand into a guiding one. Board texture dictates everything. On dry flops like ace-7-4, your top pair will often be best. On coordinated boards, ace-10-jack or ace-9-8, danger increases immediately. Those textures interact heavily with your opponent's calling range. Straight draws, two pairs, and better kickers emerge. Professionals slow down here, checking more often and relying on observation. They recognize that top pair can shift from dominance to vulnerability in one heartbeat. Awareness replaces excitement. Opponent tendencies also shape your plan. Against passive players, betting small for value works well. Against aggressive players who love to raise, checking can disarm them. Professionals tailor their rhythm to the individual. They are never rigid. Their control stems from flexibility, not stubbornness. The calm player adjusts in real time, understanding that poker rewards responsiveness more than aggression. The real danger of top pair with ace-queen lies in emotional attachment. The human mind wants to anchor on the visible strength. When you see top pair, you stop questioning. You believe the story has ended, but it has only begun. Professionals train themselves to detach from that comfort. They continue to evaluate each card and each action as new information. Top pair does not mean top hand. It means you have something to protect, not something to defend blindly. In multiway pots, top pair loses significant value. The presence of more players multiplies the chance that someone connects more strongly. Professionals rarely overcommit with ace-queen in these scenarios. They use the hand as a measure of control, not aggression. A single bet for protection is fine. 3 streets of commitment without improvement is not. Their discipline turns potential disaster into quiet equilibrium. Another subtle art in these spots is reading reaction. When you bet with top pair and an opponent calls quickly, they may have a weaker ace or a draw. When they pause and raise, alarm bells should ring. Professionals trust these tempo cues without paranoia. They do not panic when raised. They slow down, collect information, and let logic guide them. The decision to fold top pair is one of maturity, not weakness. It shows belief in process over pride. Top pair with ace-queen also becomes a lesson in narrative building. As each street unfolds, you must tell a consistent story. If you bet the flop and check the turn, your opponent learns something about your range. If you check both streets, you invite them to test your resolve. Professionals manage this conversation gently. Their choices form sentences of clarity. They express strength softly, not through large bets but through coherence. By the river, the hand often resolves in quiet evaluation. You may face a small bet from a weaker ace, or a large one from a stronger range. Professionals accept uncertainty here. They call small bets that make sense, and fold to lines that do not fit weaker ranges. They never chase the need to be right. they chase the need to be consistent. Over a lifetime, that consistency brings peace. Top pair with ace-queen represents a mirror moment in poker. It reveals your relationship with control. If you overvalue comfort, you lose slowly. If you fear it too much, you miss profit. The professional finds the middle path, steady, alert, adaptable. Each decision flows naturally from structure, not emotion. When you hit top pair, you do not celebrate, you breathe. You let logic lead, not pride. You play the hand softly, fully aware that in poker, what looks safe is often just another test of discipline. Chapter 17. Flop Scenarios. Missing the board. No matter how beautiful ace-queen looks before the flop, most of the time it will miss entirely. The board falls low unconnected, or full of cards that have nothing to do with your hand. In these moments, the illusion of strength fades, and only structure remains. How you respond when ace-queen misses defines your professionalism. The calm player treats these flops not as disappointment, but as information. The untrained player turns frustration into mistakes. Learning to navigate missed boards with serenity is a hallmark of true control. When you miss, the first step is acceptance. Emotionally, this is harder than it sounds. The mind remembers the promise of high cards, the sense of power you felt before the flop. That feeling lingers, urging you to continue betting, to force a victory that no longer belongs to you. Professionals quiet that voice quickly. They recognize that missing the flop is part of the natural order. It is not personal. It does not require recovery. It simply means that your path for this hand has changed. The structure of your next move depends on position, texture, and opponent. In position, you hold the power to act last. This allows flexibility. You can make a small continuation bet on dry boards to maintain initiative, or check behind to preserve chips and gather information. Out of position, caution rises in value. Betting too often after missing the flop exposes weakness and invites pressure. Professionals know that surrender is sometimes the most profitable move. They check and fold without emotional residue. Board texture tells the deeper story. On dry, disconnected boards such as 7-2-2 or 9-4-4, a small continuation bet often succeeds. These textures rarely connect with an opponent's range, and your ace-high can still carry showdown value. On coordinated boards, Jack 10-9 or 8-9-10, restraint becomes the higher path. Such boards hit calling ranges hard. A continuation bet here often turns from representation into donation. Professionals adapt their aggression to texture rather than routine. Understanding your table image also influences your choice. If you have played tightly and earned respect, a small continuation bet carries weight. If you have been active and aggressive, opponents are more likely to challenge you. Professionals read these dynamics in real time. They never apply one rule to all situations. They see poker as a living environment, each board, each player, each history forming a unique combination of variables. Missed flops become practice in this awareness. When you do choose to continuation bet, sizing is crucial. Professionals favor smaller bets when they miss, often 1/3 of the pot or less. These bets serve as probes, testing reactions without overcommitment. If called or raised, they let go peacefully. They understand that protecting chip flow matters more than defending ego. The purpose of the small bet is not to win every hand, but to maintain initiative efficiently, Checking missed flops does not mean giving up. It means shifting to observation mode. By checking, you invite your opponent to define their hand first. Their bet sizing and timing become clues. A small delayed bet on the turn may represent weakness. A large one may represent polarization. Professionals gather this information calmly, deciding whether to continue or release. Every check creates a window to watch behavior. Patience turns observation into advantage. In tournaments, missing flops teaches energy management. Blinds and antes drain steadily, tempting players to chase every lost opportunity. Professionals resist this spiral. They fold and reset without frustration. Their discipline preserves mental clarity for the moments that matter. In long sessions, conserving emotional energy becomes as important as conserving chips. Each fold after a missed flop is an act of efficiency, one small decision that protects the focus needed for future wins. Another subtle lesson of missed flops is humility toward variance. You can make all the right decisions and still miss repeatedly. Professionals do not let streaks of missed boards affect their rhythm. They maintain consistent tempo, neither tightening out of frustration nor loosening out of boredom. Their identity does not depend on outcomes. They trust that correct process, repeated over time, will balance results. That trust frees them from chasing losses or overplaying future flops out of impatience. Sometimes, a missed flop becomes an opportunity. Against opponents who overfold, continuation betting remains profitable even without equity. Against opponents who bet every missed board, check raising as a bluff becomes viable. Professionals use these patterns sparingly and with logic. They understand that balance requires occasional counterplay. The calm player stays unpredictable, not through emotion but through structure. Above all, missing the board with ace-queen tests your detachment. It reminds you that poker is not about what you deserve, but what the situation allows. The amateur clings to hope and forces action. The professional accepts the moment and acts with reason. Folding after a missed flop is not failure. It is discipline. It is the sound of long-term profit disguised as quiet surrender. When you hold ace-queen and the flop brings nothing, no pair, no draw, no comfort, pause. Feel the temptation to continue, then let it fade. Your job is not to win every pot. It is to protect your equilibrium. Every missed board you handle with calm sets the foundation for your next victory. Poker rewards those who stay composed when the cards refuse to cooperate. The board may have missed you, but discipline never does. Chapter 18: Continuation Betting Control. Continuation betting is one of the most misunderstood aspects of poker. It seems simple. You raise pre-flop, the flop comes, and you bet again to show strength. But true professionals know that continuation betting is not an obligation. It is a choice. With ace-queen, that choice becomes especially delicate. Sometimes the board rewards aggression, but often it demands restraint. Learning when to apply pressure and when to pause is what turns mechanical play into mastery. Ace-queen sits at the intersection of aggression and caution. It has strong blockers, powerful potential, and credibility on many boards. Yet it also misses the flop frequently. Professionals use continuation betting as a scalpel, not a hammer. They understand that every bet tells a story. If the story does not make sense, silence speaks louder. The secret is not in betting more or less, but in betting with reason. The first element of continuation betting control is texture awareness. Dry boards such as King 7-2 or 9-4-4 rarely connect with an opponent's range. These are the boards where a small continuation bet with ace-queen makes sense, even when you miss completely. You represent overpairs and top pairs, forcing folds from weaker holdings. On coordinated boards like Jack 10-9 or Queen Jack 10, the situation reverses. These textures collide directly with your opponent's calling range. Betting here only inflates risk. Professionals read texture like a map, deciding whether the terrain supports a confident step or a quiet pause. Position adds another dimension. In position, your continuation bets carry more credibility. You act after gathering information, watching hesitation or strength before deciding. Out of position, the dynamic flips. Betting blindly after the flop often opens the door for check raises that force you into uncomfortable folds. Professionals adapt by betting less frequently when out of position. They preserve control by choosing selective aggression instead of default continuation. The fewer times you commit chips without clarity, the steadier your results become. Sizing is equally critical. A continuation bet is not about how much you bet, but about what your sizing communicates. Professionals use smaller bets, often around 1/3 of the pot, on dry boards where their range holds an advantage. Larger bets are reserved for boards that connect heavily with their range, or when their hand needs protection. Ace-queen often thrives in the small bet structure. It keeps the pot manageable while maintaining initiative. Each small bet serves as a probe for information rather than a declaration of dominance. The emotional component of continuation betting cannot be ignored. Many players feel internal pressure to follow through after raising preflop. They believe that checking looks weak, as though they are giving up control. Professionals reject this illusion. They know that checking can be an act of strength. A well-timed check with ace-queen allows the board to evolve while conserving resources. It invites opponents to make mistakes. Control, in this sense, is not about dictating action, but about choosing when to step aside. Another important element is range representation. Every continuation bet must fit the story of your hand. If you raised pre-flop and the flop comes low and disconnected, your bet represents high cards and overpairs. If the flop connects strongly with the opponent's range, your bet must appear deliberate. Professionals maintain consistent frequency across holdings to stay balanced. Their opponents cannot easily identify whether they have a hand or air. This balance turns continuation betting into a tool of deception rather than predictability. Turn play also ties into continuation betting discipline. A well-controlled flop bet creates flexibility for later streets. If your small continuation bet is called, you can evaluate the turn clearly. When the turn card helps you, giving a top pair or a strong draw, you can apply pressure again. When it does not, you can check and retreat without having bloated the pot. Professionals design their flop actions to keep their turn decisions simple. They play future streets with the foresight of an architect, not the reaction of a gambler. Against aggressive opponents, continuation betting control becomes a shield. Overly frequent bettors become targets for check raises and floats. Professionals counter this by mixing in checks, protecting their checking range. They understand that unpredictability is defense. When opponents cannot predict whether you will bet or check ace-queen, they hesitate to attack. That hesitation gives you leverage later. Balance, even more than aggression, builds long-term stability. In tournaments, continuation betting must also respect stack depth and pressure. With shallower stacks, every continuation bet commits a larger portion of your resources. Professionals adjust by betting less frequently and with smaller sizes, preserving chips for moments of clear advantage. In deep cash games, they may expand their range slightly, using continuation bets to build multi-street narratives. Context always dictates rhythm. The quiet truth behind continuation betting is that control lies in choice, not consistency. You do not need to bet every flop to be strong, nor check every flop to be careful. The professional measures everything through logic, not emotion. With ace-queen, you hold a hand that demands patience. You must recognize when it plays as a bluff, when it plays as value, and when it plays as surrender. Each outcome is acceptable when chosen deliberately. Mastery of continuation betting feels peaceful. You no longer chase control, you already possess it. Each decision with ace-queen becomes an act of observation and timing. You bet when the board invites it. You check when it does not. You let go when logic says so. The chips move quietly, the rhythm stays calm, and the story you tell always makes sense. Control, in poker, is not about speaking often. It is about speaking clearly when you choose to. Chapter 19. Board Texture Awareness. Every poker hand unfolds on a landscape, and that landscape is the board. Its shape, color, and rhythm determine whether your hand thrives or crumbles. For ace-queen, board texture is the difference between clarity and confusion. Professionals learn to see these textures not as random patterns, but as languages that describe probability. Understanding this language turns chaos into calm. It transforms guessing into structure and helps you decide when to advance, when to slow down, and when to retreat entirely. The first truth about board texture is that not all flops are created equal. Some are dry, meaning they offer little connection between cards, boards like King 7-2 Rainbow or 9-4-3 with 3 suits. These boards favor the preflop raiser because few combinations connect strongly. Ace-queen performs well here. Even without a made hand, your high cards carry power. A small continuation bet often wins immediately. The board's dryness gives you permission to play confidently, but never recklessly. Professionals view these spots as controlled opportunities for pressure. Then there are wet boards, filled with draws and interlocking cards, textures such as 10-Jack-9 or 8-9-7, with 2 of the same suit. These boards belong to the caller's range, not the raiser's. Players who called your preflop raise often have suited connectors, pairs, and Broadway combinations that interact heavily with these textures. On such boards, ace-queen must retreat. Betting aggressively without a strong piece of the flop becomes an invitation for resistance. Professionals accept this truth without frustration. They treat wet boards as warnings, not challenges. Semi-wet boards, such as King 10-4 or Queen 9-6 with 2 suits, occupy the middle ground. These textures require flexibility. With backdoor draws or position, ace-queen can apply cautious pressure. Without either, it transitions into a pot control hand. Professionals adjust their continuation betting frequency according to how often their range connects compared to the opponent's. They think in percentages, not feelings. Each board texture becomes a pattern of expected reactions, not an emotional test. Paired boards create another layer of complexity. Flops like Queen-Queen-7 or 10-10-4 often appear harmless but demand care. On these boards, ranges tighten dramatically. Bluffing becomes less effective because opponents either have trips or nothing. With ace-queen, you occasionally connect perfectly, but you must still measure value. Professionals prefer smaller bets to extract thin value or checks to induce bluffs. They understand that the paired texture limits the size of the pot that can be won safely. Monotone boards, where all three cards share a suit, introduce unique psychological tension. When you hold ace-queen with a matching suit, your flush potential opens powerful paths. When you hold the opposite suits, the same board feels dangerous. Professionals navigate these situations through logic, not fear. They evaluate how likely it is that the opponent's range includes flushes and adjust accordingly. Having the ace of the suit, for example, allows confident pressure as a blocker. Lacking it demands respect for potential traps. Another aspect of texture awareness is recognizing dynamic versus static boards. Static boards, like King 7-2 Rainbow, are unlikely to change drastically on later streets. Dynamic boards like Jack 10-9 with 2 hearts evolve rapidly. Every turn card can shift the balance of power. Professionals plan their actions according to this dynamic. On static boards, they make clear one-time bets or checks, knowing that later streets will not alter much. On dynamic boards, they think ahead which turn cards help, which hurt, and how to adjust their strategy accordingly. Understanding texture also influences emotional rhythm. Beginners react to each board with immediate judgment. This looks good, or this looks bad. Professionals remove those labels. They see only structure. They do not celebrate flops that appear friendly, nor mourn those that look hostile. They analyze the texture in relation to position, stack depth, and opponent tendencies. Their emotional state remains steady, regardless of surface appearances. This neutrality allows them to act from observation, not instinct. Texture awareness extends beyond the flop. The turn and river bring new layers of connection. Each card changes the story you tell. A harmless turn on a dry board keeps your range intact. A coordinated turn on a wet board shifts momentum to your opponent. Professionals reevaluate continuously, not just once. They never assume that the texture from the flop remains static. Poker is a moving river. What was safe can become stormy in one heartbeat. The practical value of board texture awareness lies in simplification. When you learn to read textures, you no longer guess. You categorize. Each board type carries a predefined plan. Dry boards invite small bets. Wet boards invite patience. Paired boards demand thin value or restraint. Dynamic boards require forward thinking. This structure reduces stress and decision fatigue. The professional mind thrives in systems, not spontaneity. For ace-queen, texture awareness is a compass. It tells you when your hand fits the environment and when it does not. It prevents overconfidence on dangerous boards and restores courage on safe ones. Each flop becomes a story written in numbers and patterns, rather than feelings. The more you study these textures, the quieter your internal dialogue becomes. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start observing, "What does the board allow?" The secret to board texture awareness is humility. You are not the author of the board, you are its interpreter. When you respect the texture, it guides you. When you fight it, it punishes you. Professionals learn to listen. Ace-queen, graceful but fragile, rewards those who see the landscape clearly. Each decision becomes easier when guided by structure. In the stillness of that understanding, poker feels peaceful again, a quiet dialogue between the board and the player who truly sees it. Chapter 20: Turn Pressure and Pot Growth. The turn is the street where poker begins to feel heavy. Pots that once felt manageable start to swell. Stack-to-pot ratios shrink. Each decision now carries consequence. Each bet defines commitment. For ace-queen, the turn is often where confidence fades and clarity must replace it. Professionals treat this moment as a test of composure. The turn is not about aggression or defense alone. It is about balance under pressure, guiding the pot without letting it control you. The turn changes the story of a hand. It introduces one more card, one more layer of truth. With ace-queen, this is the street where the difference between control and chaos becomes visible. Perhaps you raised pre-flop, continuation bet the flop, and were called. Now the turn arrives, maybe a low card that changes nothing, or maybe a high card that shifts the dynamic entirely. The question becomes, how much pressure do you apply? Professionals answer this with logic, not emotion. When the turn changes little, such as adding a harmless deuce or 5 to a dry board, your range advantage usually remains. A small second barrel can maintain control, forcing folds from hands that floated the flop with no real strength. Professionals use smaller turn bets to keep weaker hands indifferent between calling and folding. They do not need to win every pot outright. They need to guide the pot gently toward favorable structure. The aim is to build pressure without committing recklessly. When the turn shifts the texture, adding a third suited card, or completing a straight, the dynamic reverses. Now the professional slows down. They recognize that the portion of their opponent's range that called the flop now interacts strongly with this new card. With ace-queen, if you lack the suit or connection, the turn becomes a signal to release control. Checking back or calling instead of betting keeps the pot stable. The calm player accepts that in poker, not every story must end with aggression. Silence sometimes carries more strength than volume. Pot growth management defines your professionalism on this street. Beginners bet without awareness of what the pot will become by the river. Professionals see 2 or 3 streets ahead. They plan their line as a full sentence, what size to use now to shape the next move. With ace-queen, they rarely inflate pots unless their equity and position justify it. Every extra chip committed on the turn limits flexibility later. In deep stack play, that limitation becomes costly. Managing the pot is managing freedom. Position amplifies your control. In position, you can dictate pace. When check 2, you can choose to bet small, check behind, or apply delayed pressure on rivers that favor your range. Out of position, decisions grow harder. Professionals adapt by simplifying. They use fewer bet sizes, check more often, and fold sooner to aggression. Their goal is not perfection, but consistency. They accept the small disadvantages of position and trade them for long-term survival. Turn pressure also exposes emotional bias. The pot is larger now, and the human instinct is to defend what you've built. Folding feels like surrender after investment. Professionals train to separate past effort from present logic. They remind themselves that the chips in the pot no longer belong to them. Only the decision ahead matters. By releasing attachment to what is already risked, they think clearly. Detachment becomes the foundation of strength. Another subtle layer of turn play involves reading timing and sizing tells. When your opponent suddenly shifts their tempo or bet size, something has changed. Professionals process these signals quietly. A small bet after heavy action may represent weakness. An overbet may show polarization. Ace-queen often serves as a measuring tool in these moments. It is strong enough to call small bets and disciplined enough to fold against disproportionate aggression. The hand becomes a test of emotional steadiness. When the turn card helps you, pairing your ace or queen, or giving a new draw, the professional approach remains the same, deliberate and calm. They do not rush to build a huge pot. Instead, they evaluate whether further streets will favor their range. They protect their advantage by maintaining balanced bet sizing. A winning turn card does not erase risk, it simply shifts it. Control is maintained through patience, not through celebration. In tournaments, turn pressure often aligns with survival instinct. Stack sizes are smaller relative to blinds, and players frequently commit themselves by the turn. Professionals recognize these pressure points instinctively. They know when an opponent's stack size leaves them pot committed, and when fold equity still exists. With ace-queen, they use this awareness to apply pressure selectively. Their aggression is not random but surgical, targeting weakness with mathematical precision. The river still awaits, and professionals never forget that. Every turn decision builds or destroys river clarity. Betting too large now can force awkward river spots where your range collapses. Checking too often can surrender momentum. The art lies in guiding the hand through this narrow passage between passivity and overreach. Professionals call this pot navigation, steering the hand like a vessel through shifting current. In truth, the turn teaches balance more than any other street. It asks whether you can stay composed as pressure mounts, whether you can choose logic over emotion when pots grow heavy. Ace-queen magnifies this lesson because it often sits between security and risk. It is rarely far ahead or far behind. It lives in the middle ground of judgment. The professional thrives in this space. They measure, adapt, and breathe through each rising wave of pressure. By the time the river comes, the calm player has already done the work. The pot is right-sized, the decisions are clear, and no emotion remains. The turn, once feared for its weight, becomes another opportunity to demonstrate control. Poker's deepest truth lies here. Strength is not found in betting more, but in knowing when to stop. Pot growth should always serve understanding, never ego. Chapter 21. River Discipline and Showdown Value. The river is the final act, the last card, the last decision, and the last test of discipline. Everything that came before now converges into a single moment of truth. With ace-queen, that moment often arrives quietly. Sometimes you still hold top pair, sometimes only ace-high. Either way, the river reveals who you are as a player. It measures whether you chase closure or accept clarity. Professionals do not see the river as a place to prove themselves. They see it as a place to conclude the hand with precision and peace. By the time the river falls, the hand's story is nearly complete. The board texture, betting patterns, and opponent behavior have all provided data. Professionals treat this final street as a summary, not a mystery. They analyze what each player's range represents and how the river card changes those representations. When they hold ace-queen, their mind does not dwell on what could have been, the missed straight, the faded flush, but on what the board now allows. The decision becomes a conclusion drawn from structure, not hope. River discipline begins with emotional neutrality. For many players, this is the hardest part of poker. The pot is large, tension high, and curiosity alive. They want to know what their opponent holds, even if it costs them chips. Professionals resist this pull completely. They are not here to satisfy curiosity. They are here to make correct decisions. Folding on the river, when logic demands it, is an act of strength. Calling only to see loses both chips and clarity. The professional accepts that peace sometimes lies in letting go. When holding ace-queen on the river, your task is to evaluate showdown value. Ask, can my hand win at showdown if I check? If yes, there is no reason to turn it into a bluff. Ace-queen often retains value against missed draws and weaker pairs. Checking back in position preserves that value and keeps variance low. Out of position, the same principle applies. If your opponent bets small and your hand still beats part of their range, a calm call is enough. Professionals avoid emotional swings between hero calls and unnecessary bluffs. They act through logic, not temptation. Bluffing the river with ace-queen demands clarity of reason. It should only occur when your hand blocks the strongest possible combinations, and your line credibly represents value. Professionals never bluff just because they missed. They bluff because their story fits. For example, holding the ace of the suit on a missed flush board can create a powerful narrative. But even then, they size their bluffs with purpose, not desperation. Every river bet must make sense both mathematically and emotionally, believable to the opponent and consistent with the prior streets. Bet sizing again defines control. Professionals use small balanced bets when seeking thin value, and polarized sizing when representing strong hands. With ace-queen, this distinction matters deeply. When the hand still carries strength, top pair or second pair, on safe textures, small value bets extract chips from weaker ranges, without inflating risk. When the board turns hostile, restraint replaces aggression. Checking behind or folding to large bets becomes a natural extension of structure. There is no ego in survival. The concept of pot surrender also emerges here. It means releasing ownership of the pot entirely. Once you recognize that your hand cannot win or bluff profitably, you let it go. This surrender is not defeat, it is closure. Professionals detach from sunk cost. They do not justify calls based on past investment. The chips in the middle belong to no one until the hand ends. By surrendering attachment, they preserve emotional energy for future decisions. Each fold on the river becomes a quiet victory in focus. Reading opponents on the river shifts from guessing to listening. The way they bet, their size, timing, and frequency tells a consistent story. Professionals compare that story to the logical range built from earlier streets. If the story breaks, if something feels inconsistent, they call more freely. If the story fits perfectly, they fold without regret. This process requires humility. You cannot force errors from others, but you can prevent your own through awareness. In tournaments, river discipline also intertwines with survival. Every chip saved retains life. Professionals often check back ace-queen on the river, rather than chase marginal value, understanding that future opportunities outweigh a single pot. In cash games, the principle remains, though the balance tilts slightly toward value seeking. Yet even there, emotional control defines outcomes. Whether playing for chips or life, the calm player treats the river as an exercise in acceptance. They neither celebrate nor despair, they conclude. One of the most overlooked truths about river play is that results do not define success. You can make a perfect fold and still watch your opponent show a bluff. You can make a perfect call and still lose to the top of their range. Professionals measure victory, not by what happens, but by how correctly they acted. When your river decision flows from structure, every outcome feels calm. You win through process, not by fortune. Ace-queen, reaching the river, symbolizes completion. It began with promise, navigated danger, and now demands honesty. Did you play with awareness? Did you adapt to texture, position, and pressure? The river will not reward emotion, but it will reflect truth. The calm player meets that truth without tension. Whether the pot slides toward them or away, their rhythm remains unbroken. River discipline is more than folding or calling correctly. It is the quiet state of knowing you acted with intention at every step. It is the confidence that comes from clarity. When you can check back ace-queen with top pair and feel at peace, or fold it face up against strength without regret, you have mastered not just a hand, but the mindset of a professional. The river does not ask for brilliance, it asks for balance. And those who meet it with steady hearts find peace in every conclusion. Chapter 22: Emotional Detachment and Decision Rhythm. Poker is not only a game of cards, but a meditation on emotion. Every hand presents small fluctuations of hope, fear, and impatience. Most players live inside those waves, reacting to each result as though it defines them. Professionals live above them. They watch the waves without being carried away. Ace-queen, beautiful and deceptive, becomes a perfect teacher of emotional detachment. It rewards structure and punishes excitement. It reminds you that the rhythm of your decisions must remain steady, no matter what happens around you. Emotional detachment does not mean indifference. It means presence without reaction. The professional still feels disappointment when losing with ace-queen and satisfaction when winning with it, but they do not let either feeling alter their next decision. They experience emotion like passing weather, acknowledged but not obeyed. This calm awareness allows clear thinking in the moments when most players lose control. The more emotional the table becomes, the more peaceful the professional must remain. Ace-queen often tests that peace. It is a hand that invites confidence, and then, just as easily, betrayal. It gives you top pair and takes it away with a better kicker. It dominates weaker aces but folds helplessly to pressure from kings. Every outcome seems designed to test patience. Professionals interpret this not as bad luck, but as training. Each difficult hand with ace-queen becomes practice in neutrality. It asks whether you can make correct choices, regardless of frustration or desire. Decision rhythm begins with breathing. Many players underestimate this. They act quickly under stress, afraid of silence. Professionals slow their breath to steady their thoughts. Between every bet and call, they create a pause, a quiet space where clarity can return. That rhythm protects them. It turns poker from reaction into meditation. The cards become data points, the chips become instruments, and each motion at the table becomes deliberate. When you breathe with consistency, you make choices from calm rather than impulse. Structure also builds rhythm. Professionals rely on consistent processes to prevent emotional drift. They follow routines, assess position, evaluate ranges, analyze texture, decide on sizing. This pattern creates stability, even in chaos. Ace-queen's volatility makes this structure essential. Whether it wins or loses, the process remains identical. You fold when logic dictates, raise when odds align, and never deviate out of frustration. The discipline of repetition replaces the instability of emotion. One of the hardest emotional lessons in poker is separating identity from outcome. Many players judge their worth by results. A won pot feels like validation. A lost one feels like failure. Professionals reject this illusion. They know that even perfect play loses in the short term. Ace-Queen teaches this repeatedly. It will beat worse hands and still lose to better ones. The professional's self-worth remains untouched. Their satisfaction comes from execution, not from what the dealer delivers. Emotional detachment also means avoiding revenge. When Ace-Queen loses a big pot, the temptation to win it back immediately can cloud judgment. Professionals recognize this urge instantly. They respond with stillness. They remind themselves that poker is infinite. One pot lost is nothing in the scope of 1,000. They fold the next hand calmly, resetting their internal pace. Emotional recovery becomes part of their skill set. Each quiet reset strengthens long-term rhythm. The rhythm of decisions is also physical. Professionals manage pace deliberately. They act at the same tempo, whether confident or uncertain. Their body language remains even, no quick glances, no hurried motions. This consistency disarms opponents and stabilizes their own psychology. When you act predictably in timing, your internal state stays balanced. Ace-Queen's swings cannot disturb you because your pace never changes. You remain anchored in process, not result. Another aspect of detachment is acceptance of variance. Poker is built on uncertainty. You can play perfectly and still lose for hours. Emotional players resist this reality and exhaust themselves. Professionals surrender to it. They treat variance like weather, something to prepare for, not to control. Ace-Queen embodies this principle because its strength fluctuates wildly from hand to hand. The calm player embraces both the sunshine of dominance and the rain of domination with equal grace. In live play, emotional control also influences perception. Opponents read energy. They sense frustration, excitement, and fear, long before you realize you're showing it. Professionals maintain neutral presence. They use slow, deliberate motions and steady posture to communicate stability. This steadiness affects the table subtly. Tension dissipates, and opponents often misread calm as weakness. In reality, it is quiet power. Online, the challenge shifts inward. Without visible tells, emotional detachment must occur mentally. Professionals monitor their heart rate, tone of thought, and pace of action. When they feel the pulse of impatience, they step away or take a breath before the next hand. They never chase. They never speed up. Their decision rhythm becomes a metronome of logic, consistent, peaceful, reliable. At its highest level, emotional detachment merges with rhythm into what some players call flow. It is the state where decisions unfold naturally, free from noise. You no longer calculate anxiously. You simply see. Ace-Queen, once chaotic, now feels smooth. Each fold, call, and raise aligns with structure. You are not fighting the game, you are moving within it. The hand becomes a meditation on timing, patience, and surrender. The final truth is that poker reflects the self. The chaos you feel inside shows up in your play. The calm you cultivate outside the game becomes your advantage within it. Ace-Queen offers endless practice in this discipline. Its power tempts ego, its pitfalls test patience. Through it you learn that emotional detachment is not about suppressing feeling, but allowing it to pass without control. Decision rhythm, once mastered, carries you through entire sessions with serenity. When you can play Ace-Queen in any situation, losing or winning, ahead or behind, with the same calm tone and steady timing, you have achieved what few ever do. You are no longer playing poker to conquer it. You are playing poker to remain in rhythm with it. Detachment becomes connection, rhythm becomes peace, and every hand becomes another step in mastering yourself. Chapter 23. Reading Aggression with Composure. Aggression is the heartbeat of poker. It is how pressure is applied, how pots are won without showdown, and how fear is transmitted from one player to another. Yet, for every force, there is a response. The true professional learns not to fight aggression with aggression, but to absorb it, interpret it, and redirect it. When you hold ace-queen, you will often face aggression, preflop re-raises, postflop barrels, or river shoves that threaten your calm. The difference between panic and profit lies in how you read that aggression. Aggression always communicates something, but it rarely says exactly what it appears to. Some players use it honestly, betting with real strength. Others wield it like theater, loud, confident, and empty. Your task is not to fear either form. Your task is to understand the motive behind it. Professionals analyze aggression like a language. Each sizing, timing, and sequence tells a story. When that story makes sense, they fold quietly. When it does not, they call with confidence or raise with intent. Composure transforms noise into information. With ace-queen, the first step is to evaluate the source. Who is being aggressive? Tight, disciplined opponents tend to express aggression through value-heavy ranges. Their bets mean what they seem to mean. Loose or volatile opponents use aggression more freely, often as a mask for insecurity or tilt. Professionals adjust accordingly. They do not treat every raise as equal. They build internal profiles for each opponent, mapping how often they apply pressure, what hands they reveal at showdown, and how emotion influences their decisions. Every act of aggression becomes part of a pattern. Pre-flop aggression sets the tone. When you open and face a 3-bet, composure means accepting that you are being tested. You breathe, assess position, stack size and tendencies, then respond with balance. Against strong opponents, you fold ace-queen offsuit, without hesitation. Against loose players, you call or 4-bet selectively. The key is detachment. You are not defending your ego or your hand, you are managing your range. Each calm fold reinforces long-term discipline. Each measured call teaches you more about the player applying pressure. Post-flop aggression requires deeper listening. When you face a continuation bet or a raise, your instinct might be to tense up, to fight back immediately. Professionals pause instead. They ask 3 questions. Does this board favor my opponent's range or mine? Does their sizing align with a believable story? And does my ace-queen hold enough equity to continue? This brief moment of reasoning, even in silence, diffuses the power of aggression. The calm player's stillness often unnerves opponents who expect resistance. Aggression becomes most dangerous when it feels personal. A player who repeatedly raises your continuation bets or re-raises your opens can trigger frustration. It feels like they are targeting you. In truth, they may be, but that does not matter. Professionals do not respond emotionally to targeted aggression. They welcome it. Consistent pressure provides predictable opportunities. With ace-queen, you can exploit over-aggressive players by letting them hang themselves with their own momentum. You call in position, let them overextend, and extract value when the rhythm shifts. Patience defeats force. Reading aggression also depends on physical and psychological cues. In live play, tension reveals truth. A player leaning forward, breathing sharply, or staring directly at you often holds uncertainty, not power. Professionals stay observant, but subtle. They watch without showing interest, allowing aggression to expose itself. The louder the action, the more carefully they listen. In online play, the cues are digital: timing, bet sizing, and frequency. Rapid bets may reflect emotional impulse. Delayed bets often indicate contemplation or weakness. Composure comes from recognizing patterns, not reacting to moments. Ace-Queen, in these confrontations, becomes your balance point. It is strong enough to challenge false aggression, but disciplined enough to release when real danger appears. Professionals use it as both a sword and a shield, calling down opponents who bluff too often, folding against ranges that crush. They do not overvalue the hand. They value the information it provides. Each encounter builds familiarity with pressure. Each decision refines instinct. Aggression also creates opportunity. When you understand its rhythm, you can mirror it selectively. Professionals occasionally counterattack, not from emotion, but from timing. They wait for moments when opponents are weakest, then apply calm, decisive pressure. A small raise on a board that misses your opponent's range, or a delayed bluff on a checked turn, transforms their own aggression into your leverage. You are not reacting, you are redirecting. This ability turns defensive play into artful control. Emotional composure under aggression comes from trust. Trust in your structure, in your discipline, and in your own restraint. You do not need to match volume with volume. You simply need to keep your pace. The rhythm of your breathing, the consistency of your decisions, and the quiet tone of your thinking form armor that no bet can pierce. Aggressive players thrive on reaction. Deny them that reaction, and their power fades. Every time you fold without frustration or call without tension, you remind yourself that peace can exist even in confrontation. Eventually, aggression stops feeling threatening. It becomes predictable. You begin to see it as part of the ecosystem of poker, necessary, natural, and even useful. You realize that opponents who attack often give you more data than those who stay quiet. The pressure they create sharpens your observation. Each hand becomes a lesson in patience, disguised as challenge. Ace-Queen teaches you that aggression is not an enemy, it is a mirror. It shows you your tolerance for uncertainty, your attachment to ego, and your ability to remain calm under heat. The professional learns to watch aggression unfold without judgment. They act not in defense, but in harmony with what they see. They raise when the logic says raise, fold when the structure says fold, and call when the math justifies it. Their peace remains unbroken. Reading aggression with composure is not about outplaying your opponent. It is about outlasting your own impulses. When you can face a massive bet with Ace-Queen, take a slow breath and think clearly without fear or pride. You have mastered one of poker's deepest disciplines. The table may roar, the chips may move fast, but inside, everything stays still. That stillness is the true advantage. Chapter 24: Ace-Queen as a bluff catcher. Few roles in poker feel as fragile as being the one to call. Betting feels active, empowering, like you're in control of the narrative. Calling, by contrast, feels exposed, like you're trusting someone not to deceive you. Yet in professional poker, calling is not weakness. It is precision. When used correctly, it's the counterweight to over-aggression and the key to balanced strategy. Ace-Queen, with its blend of strength and vulnerability, often becomes the perfect bluff catcher, steady enough to face pressure, but not so strong that it must dominate to have value. A bluff catcher is any hand that can only win if the opponent is bluffing. It is not strong enough to beat value bets, but too strong to fold outright. Ace-Queen frequently lands in this category. When you reach the river holding top pair with a medium kicker, or simply ace-high on a missed board, your task is no longer to attack. Your task is to interpret truth. Professionals approach this state with calm logic rather than fear. They know that calling is not guessing, it's measuring patterns, frequencies, and intent. The first step is range awareness. When your opponent barrels all three streets, ask what value hands they truly represent. How many combinations logically beat ace-queen, and how many possible bluffs remain? Professionals make this calculation intuitively. If the value side outweighs the bluff side, they fold without hesitation. If the bluff side dominates, they call. There is no pride or emotion, just arithmetic wrapped in patience. Ace-Queen's steady strength allows you to make this calculation without panic. Position deepens the decision. In position, you control timing. You can observe the flow of betting, notice hesitation, and call with confidence when the story feels incomplete. Out of position, calling becomes harder. You lack information and must decide before seeing the opponent's reaction. Professionals adapt by tightening their calling range out of position. They protect their equilibrium by avoiding unnecessary hero calls. The calm player always defends structure first. Board texture again shapes the path. On dry, disconnected boards like King 7-3 or 9-4-4, Ace-Queen retains significant bluff-catching value. Opponents struggle to represent strong hands on such flops, so many of their bets are air. On coordinated textures, 10-Jack-9 or Queen 10-8, the opposite holds true. The more the board connects with value, the less often Ace-Queen should call. Professionals read texture as context. Each board defines the ratio of truth to deception. Sizing reveals story. Large overbets on the river often signal polarization, either very strong or completely weak. Small or medium bets usually represent marginal hands, seeking cheap value. Professionals use this insight to calibrate responses. Against polarization, Ace-Queen can call when holding key blockers, such as the ace of the suit on a missed flush draw. Against smaller, merged sizing, folding becomes better. You are not guessing, you are translating communication through math and pattern. The emotional challenge of bluff catching lies in self-trust. Every fiber of instinct wants reassurance. You crave certainty before calling, yet poker never gives it. Professionals make peace with uncertainty. They accept that sometimes they will call and lose, other times call and win. What matters is that the decision made sense at the time. This acceptance frees them from fear. They do not seek to be right, they seek to be reasonable. When facing relentless aggression, composure becomes armor. A quick or defensive call often comes from ego, an urge to prove you cannot be bluffed. Professionals remove that impulse. They let each decision unfold slowly, through rhythm and breath. When they finally place the chips forward, it is quiet and deliberate. The act itself is detached from hope. The call represents logic fulfilled, not emotion expressed. Ace-Queen's strength as a bluff catcher lies in its blockers and showdown value. Holding the ace reduces the number of nut hands your opponent can have. Holding the queen removes top pair combinations from their range. These hidden mathematical edges make the hand perfect for selective calls. Professionals study these details until they feel intuitive. Over time, the call no longer feels risky, it feels natural, as though you are simply observing probability in motion. Even so, restraint remains essential. Not every situation calls for heroism. When the line of aggression tells a coherent, believable story, the professional folds without regret. There is no virtue in curiosity. There is only process. Folding correctly brings the same satisfaction as calling correctly, because both express discipline. The calm player values precision over drama. In tournaments, bluff catching demands extra awareness. The value of each chip shifts with ICM pressure. Calling too lightly when short can end an entire run. Professionals weigh the cost of elimination against the likelihood of bluff frequency. In deep cash games, the same hand might be a clear call. In a tournament, it may be an easy fold. Context guides courage. Ultimately, calling with ace-queen as a bluff catcher is a conversation with truth. You listen to what the hand, the board, and your opponent's rhythm have been saying all along. You filter noise from meaning. Sometimes the truth is that you are beat. Sometimes it is that you have been tested. Either outcome teaches clarity. The professional's peace comes not from winning every call, but from knowing that each one was earned through calm observation. When you place chips forward with ace-queen and your mind is still, you have already won, not the pot, but the moment. You have proven that emotion no longer rules you. Bluff catching then becomes more than defense. It becomes meditation, the art of seeing clearly in a storm of deception, and trusting that calm, not courage, is the truest form of strength. Chapter 25. The value of controlled aggression. Aggression is the engine of poker. It creates pressure, builds pots, and forces mistakes. But uncontrolled aggression, the kind born from impatience or pride, destroys as often as it wins. Professionals learn to harness aggression as a precise tool, not a reflex. With ace-queen, this lesson becomes personal. The hand invites forward motion. It looks strong, feels elegant, and often dominates. Yet the calm player knows that power without discipline turns into chaos. Controlled aggression means acting with confidence, guided by structure, never impulse. Controlled aggression begins with intention. Every bet, raise, or shove must serve a purpose: to extract value, to deny equity, or to balance your range. Nothing is random. When you raise with ace-queen pre-flop, you are not expressing excitement. You are asserting strategic control. You know that the hand plays well heads up, isolates weaker ranges, and applies natural pressure to marginal holdings. Your aggression is functional, not emotional. Professionals carry this mindset across every street. Pre-flop, controlled aggression manifests in consistent sizing. You open to the same amount with your strong and medium hands alike, never betraying confidence through variation. The table cannot read your strength, and that invisibility becomes protection. Post-flop, controlled aggression shifts shape. You bet when the situation aligns, when the board texture, opponent tendencies, and position support continuation. You check when none of these conditions apply. The aggression remains alive, but it obeys reason. Ace-queen's most common mistake is over-aggression. Players fall in love with its beauty. They force action, three-betting against tight ranges, or double-barreling into obvious strength. Professionals view those temptations as tests of awareness. When the urge to dominate arises, they pause, breathe, and ask, "What am I achieving by betting?" If the answer is unclear, they let go. The result is smoother rhythm and smaller variance. They do not confuse bravery with progress. True aggression is rooted in clarity. Professionals separate their decisions into two categories: offensive and opportunistic. Offensive aggression applies pressure deliberately, opening pots, continuation betting, or raising for value. Opportunistic aggression responds to weakness, detecting hesitation, missed textures, or capped ranges. With ace-queen, both forms emerge naturally. It can lead the action with strength, or strike when opponents falter. The calm player blends both into one seamless motion, never forcing either. Controlled aggression also relies on awareness of fold equity. Every act of pressure only holds value if your opponent can still fold. Against players who call too often, professionals slow down. Against players who fear confrontation, they accelerate. Their tempo flows with context. Ace-queen, in this balance, becomes a barometer of timing. When played correctly, it teaches patience and power, a rare combination that defines advanced play. The emotional foundation of controlled aggression is restraint. Many believe aggression equals dominance, but in truth, it equals direction. You must know where you are leading the hand. Professionals use smaller bets more often than larger ones. They trust that cumulative pressure, applied repeatedly, is more profitable than a single massive shove. Their aggression sounds like a steady drumbeat, not a crash of thunder. Over time, this quiet consistency wears opponents down, inviting mistakes born from discomfort. Ace-queen benefits especially from this approach. Its strength lies not in forcing opponents to fold, but in guiding them toward bad decisions, calling too light when behind, folding too soon when ahead, misunderstanding your confidence. Controlled aggression creates this confusion. It builds pots in which your decisions stay simple, and your opponents become complex. The professional understands that pressure is not about fear, it is about structure that limits the other player's options. Another aspect of controlled aggression is rhythm recovery. After losing a big pot, amateurs often overcompensate. They raise too frequently, bluff too wide, and chase validation. Professionals do the opposite. They rebuild rhythm quietly. They continue to play their system unchanged, allowing the structure to absorb the emotional shock. Their aggression never spikes, it breathes. Like a heartbeat, it remains steady, unaffected by variance. Controlled aggression also involves selective risk. You cannot avoid risk entirely, poker demands it, but you can choose when to embrace it. Professionals lean into aggression only when the variables align: position, stack depth, image, and opponent type. When these pieces fit, they commit without hesitation. When they don't, they wait. This selectivity transforms aggression from gamble to precision. Each move carries intent, not anxiety. In tournaments, controlled aggression becomes the engine of survival. Blinds rise, stacks shrink, and waiting too long means suffocation. Professionals use ace-queen to reassert space in these moments, three-betting late position opens, stealing blinds with correct stack depth, and applying pressure when others hesitate. Yet they do so within limits. Every shove, every raise, fits their range logic. They act like sculptors shaping opportunity, not fighters chasing conflict. In cash games, controlled aggression turns into sustainability. Deep stacks magnify mistakes, and over-aggression becomes costly. Professionals pace their pressure. They maintain initiative without escalating variance. Each bet is a question, not a statement. What will you do with this? They let opponents reveal themselves under the weight of steady, non-emotional aggression. Over time, this method yields profits, not through dominance, but through endurance. The beauty of controlled aggression is that it feels calm. From the outside, the professional seems fearless, but inside, their mind is still. They are not chasing adrenaline, they are maintaining rhythm. Ace-Queen, when played this way, becomes effortless. It no longer flips between trap and treasure. It becomes a tool for balance. You lead softly, you pressure gently, and the game unfolds at your pace. Control is not about betting less, it is about betting with clarity. Aggression, when stripped of ego, becomes art, a measured force that shapes the table without noise. The player who can raise without anger, bluff without fear, and fold without shame has reached the quiet summit of poker discipline. Ace-Queen under those hands becomes something rare, a hand of peace used to create motion, a reminder that true power never shouts, it whispers direction. Chapter 26. Extracting Thin Value. Thin value is one of poker's quietest skills. It's subtle, disciplined, and invisible to most players. Anyone can bet big with a monster hand. True professionals make their living from the small, precise bets that turn average situations into long-term profit. Extracting thin value means recognizing when you're likely ahead by a narrow margin and knowing exactly how to take a little more without inviting disaster. Ace-Queen teaches this art better than almost any hand. It often makes strong but not invincible pairs, hands that win small pots if handled gently, and lose big ones if handled recklessly. The concept begins with awareness. Thin value comes from betting, when your opponent can call with worse hands, but rarely fold better ones. With Ace-Queen, this happens frequently on safe boards. A dry ace-high flop where weaker aces or pairs might still call, or a queen-high texture where smaller pairs remain curious. Professionals spot these spots naturally. They do not need to be certain they're ahead. They only need to believe that their value edge outweighs the risk of being called by better. Sizing is everything. Thin value bets are not about intimidation. They are invitations. You're coaxing your opponent into a call, not forcing it. Professionals use small, deliberate sizing, often 1/4 or 1/3 of the pot. The smaller bet feels harmless to the opponent, encouraging them to continue. The irony is that these small pots accumulate quietly over hours, forming the core of a professional's edge. Big wins are rare and flashy, but small value bets sustain careers. Timing defines the thin value play. Professionals look for boards that have settled, textures where major draws have missed, and only single pairs remain. If action slows on the turn and the river checks through, Ace-Queen's top pair becomes the kind of hand that earns one more bet. The key is not aggression, but empathy, understanding how your opponent feels. A hesitant opponent wants reassurance to fold. A curious one wants an excuse to call. The professional's thin value bet gives them that excuse at the perfect size. In position, thin value is safer. You can watch your opponent's reactions before deciding whether to go for that final bet. A quick check or sigh often signals weakness. A deliberate stare may signal strength. Professionals never rush. They breathe, assess, and make their move only when the story aligns. Out of position, they tread more carefully, preferring check calls to thin bets that expose them to raises. Every missed cue can turn a small victory into a painful loss, so discipline replaces desire. Another aspect of thin value is opponent profiling. Against calling stations, players who rarely fold, even thin value becomes thick. You can bet larger, confident, that weaker pairs will still pay. Against tight or cautious players, however, the range of worse hands that call shrinks drastically. Professionals adapt by checking more often, preserving equilibrium. They never force thin value in poor conditions. They wait for the right moment. The emotional component of thin value cannot be overstated. Many players fear betting small because they fear being raised. That fear turns potential wins into lost opportunities. Professionals accept that sometimes they will be raised, sometimes they will be wrong, but across thousands of hands, their calm, consistent extraction yields quiet profit. They measure success not by individual outcomes, but by process. Every small value bet, made with composure, contributes to long-term growth. Thin value is also a lesson in humility. It asks you to embrace uncertainty. You will never know for sure whether your bet is called by worse or trapped by better. Professionals let go of the need for perfection. They bet when the situation justifies it, not when certainty exists. Ace-Queen in particular demands this courage. It wins often, but rarely by wide margins. The professional learns to be content with that. They stop chasing dominance and start trusting judgment. In deep stack games, thin value shines brightest. Big pots attract attention, but the true grind lies in these smaller rhythmic exchanges. Betting ace-queen on a safe river for 1/3 pot, being called by ace-jack or queen-10, this is where profit hides. The professional collects these moments quietly, never celebrating, never hesitating. Their mindset is patient, almost detached, knowing that one good thin value bet repeated endlessly outweighs any single heroic play. In tournaments, thin value takes on extra meaning. As stacks shorten, every chip matters more. Professionals recognize when small bets are worth the risk, and when ICM pressure makes them unnecessary. They trade thin value for survival when needed, adapting their priorities. Wisdom in poker means knowing when to reach for more and when to preserve what you have. The discipline behind thin value extends beyond mechanics. It's a state of listening. You listen to the board, to the pace of betting, to the unspoken signals of hesitation or curiosity. You stop forcing the game and start hearing its rhythm. The professional's thin value bet feels effortless because it arises naturally from this awareness. It is neither cautious nor greedy, it is balanced. Ace-Queen embodies this balance. It is strong enough to lead, but delicate enough to require care. It invites mistakes from opponents without demanding perfection from you. When you bet small on the river, receive a reluctant call, and quietly drag the pot, you feel the essence of professional poker control, without ego, precision without force. Thin value is not about winning big, it's about winning correctly. Each time you extract it, you affirm that poker's deepest profits come not from drama, but from discipline. The player who can find value in small margins, who bets softly when others freeze, holds a power invisible to most. In that calm, measured confidence, Ace-Queen finds its truest form, a hand that thrives not through boldness, but through grace. Chapter 27. Adjusting to Opponent Types. Poker is not played against the cards, it is played against people. Every table, every session, and every orbit brings a new mix of personalities, rhythms, and habits. Ace-Queen, more than most hands, reveals how well you adapt. Its strength depends on context. It can shine like a premium against one player and crumble against another. Professionals know that there is no single correct way to play Ace-Queen, only correct ways for specific opponents. Adaptation is their greatest weapon, and awareness is the tool that sharpens it. The first adjustment comes through classification. Most players fall into a few familiar categories: the tight, the loose, the passive, and the aggressive. Some combine traits: tight aggressive, loose passive, but the patterns remain recognizable. The professional's job is to identify these categories within the first few orbits. Every bet, fold, or hesitation adds data. Once you know who you're facing, Ace-Queen becomes easier to manage because it no longer plays in isolation. It plays in context. Against tight players, patience becomes your ally. These opponents open narrow ranges and rarely bluff. Their aggression usually represents strength. When you face a 3-bet from this type, folding Ace-Queen is not weakness, it's wisdom. You preserve energy by respecting their discipline. However, tight players also create opportunity. They fold too often to pressure, especially post-flop. You can open wider and continuation bet more frequently. Professionals balance this dynamic like a pendulum, folding quickly when dominated, attacking quietly when ignored. Against loose players, the rhythm reverses. These opponents call too many raises and chase too many flops. With Ace-Queen, value rises. You can raise larger pre-flop and bet confidently for value after connecting. The danger lies in overextending. Loose players may surprise you with unpredictable holdings that hit disguised boards. Professionals adapt by controlling pot size. They build pots gradually, avoiding unnecessary risk. The goal is not to crush them with force, but to guide them into small, consistent mistakes. Passive players, those who call too often and rarely raise, require a shift in pace. Against them, bluffing loses value because they do not fold easily. With Ace-Queen, professionals focus on value extraction. Every time you connect with top pair or better, you can bet freely. You are not trying to trick them. You are simply giving them chances to make incorrect calls. Against passivity, the professional's job is to remain patient and disciplined. Let their reluctance to act feed your quiet profit. Aggressive players, by contrast, demand composure. They raise frequently, apply pressure relentlessly, and feed on emotional reaction. With Ace-Queen, professionals counter, not through defiance but through structure. They tighten their opening ranges, strengthen their calling hands, and avoid marginal bluffs. When they do play back, it's deliberate. Calling aggression with Ace-Queen becomes a tool for control, letting opponents overextend, then capitalizing when their stories collapse. Aggression is their language, but patience is your translation. Beyond these general archetypes lies nuance. Some players tilt easily after losing a hand, others tighten further. Some attack weakness immediately, others retreat from confrontation. Professionals adapt not just to type, but to mood. They observe body language, breathing, and rhythm. In live games, a sudden stillness or change in posture can speak volumes. Online, timing tells and bet patterns replace physical cues. Every adjustment adds an invisible layer of edge. Image also interacts with opponent types. The tighter you appear, the more likely your Ace-Queen bluffs will succeed. The looser you appear, the more likely you'll be paid when you hold value. Professionals manipulate this perception deliberately. They plant seeds early, showing strong hands after aggression, or folding visibly to pressure, to build credibility. Later, when they bluff with Ace-Queen, the table believes them. Adaptation is not reactive, it's architectural. You shape the future through the image you build now. Stack depth and format further influence adjustments. In tournaments, where survival matters, professionals play ace-queen differently against big stacks than short ones. Against large stacks capable of applying pressure, they tighten. Against short stacks forced into shoves, they widen. In cash games, the depth allows more post-flop creativity, floating loose aggressive players or slow-playing tight ones. Context redefines every decision. The emotional core of adaptation is flexibility. Many players fall into habits, automatic lines, that ignore who they face. Professionals refuse automation. Each new opponent is a new ecosystem, requiring new balance. They can play ace-queen like a trap, like a weapon, or like a shield, depending entirely on their environment. They see poker not as static theory, but as a living art form. Adaptation is their brushstroke. One quiet danger of adjusting is over-adjusting. The mind that constantly second-guesses loses stability. Professionals guard against this by anchoring each decision to logic. They change frequency only when sufficient data supports it. Emotion never triggers adjustment. Observation does. The process remains calm, deliberate, and reversible. Over time, this flexibility becomes instinct. The professional no longer consciously classifies each player. They simply feel patterns. Ace-queen becomes like a tuning fork for table rhythm. Its strength hums differently, depending on who sits across from you. When you adapt correctly, the hand flows smoothly. When you don't, it feels resistant. The key is to listen for that harmony and adjust until the sound returns. Adaptation, at its highest level, becomes empathy. You see the game through your opponent's eyes, how they think, how they feel, how they respond to pressure. You no longer play against them, but through them. Ace-queen becomes your translator, helping you understand their psychology while staying grounded in your own. Poker rewards those who listen more than those who talk. Adjusting to opponent types is simply listening deeply to tendencies, timing, and temperament. When you can do that, ace-queen stops being a puzzle and starts being a mirror, reflecting exactly what the table gives you. Against fear, it becomes confident. Against chaos, it becomes calm. And in that adaptability, you find the essence of professionalism, quiet flexibility that bends with the wind but never breaks. Chapter 28: Mental Endurance and Long Session Focus. Poker rewards stamina as much as skill. Over the course of a long session, decisions blur together, concentration fades, and fatigue begins to whisper mistakes into the calmest mind. Many players start strong, but unravel slowly, losing discipline, folding too late, chasing too soon. Professionals survive these stretches, not through luck, but through endurance. They train their minds to remain steady for hours, their emotions to recover quickly, and their focus to reset hand after hand. With ace-queen in particular, that endurance becomes vital. It's a hand that tempts impatience, and only the patient player protects its value. Mental endurance begins before the first hand is even dealt. Professionals approach poker like athletes approach sport, rested, hydrated, and prepared for repetition. They understand that focus is not an infinite resource. It must be managed deliberately. They take small breaks, stretch and breathe between orbits. They do not chase every moment of action. Instead, they structure rhythm into their sessions, allowing recovery to coexist with intensity. Poker is a marathon of awareness, and every quiet pause keeps clarity alive. The first enemy of endurance is emotional fatigue. As hours pass, wins and losses begin to shape mood. The mind grows reactive, no longer seeing patterns clearly. Professionals counter this with detachment. They treat each hand as a self-contained event, disconnected from what came before. When they fold ace-queen to a 3-bet, they do not carry frustration into the next deal. When they win a large pot, they do not let excitement blur the next decision. Their emotional cycle resets continuously. That renewal, repeated hundreds of times, sustains energy when others collapse under accumulated noise. Nutrition and body awareness also support focus. Professionals eat lightly during play, avoiding sugar spikes and heavy meals that dull alertness. They drink water steadily and maintain posture, small details that preserve clarity in subtle ways. Mental fatigue often begins in the body. A tired spine, shallow breathing, or clenched jaw can signal the first cracks in concentration. The professional notices these signs early, correcting posture and rhythm before thought itself begins to wobble. During long sessions, discipline slips most easily through boredom. Hours of folding hands create temptation. Ace-queen, beautiful in appearance, often becomes the outlet for that boredom. Players convince themselves it must be played aggressively, simply to feel alive again. Professionals recognize this emotional drift immediately. They remind themselves that boredom is not a signal to act, it's a signal to breathe. They return to fundamentals, position, texture, and opponent type. When the mind feels restless, structure becomes medicine. Rhythm remains the anchor of endurance. Professionals maintain consistent pacing in every motion, counting chips, placing bets, stacking winnings. These rituals ground them. Each repeated gesture tells the body that nothing has changed, even after 10 hours. The tempo of play becomes a metronome for the mind. This rhythmic steadiness protects against tilt, distraction, and impulsive play. Endurance also depends on perspective. Professionals view sessions as segments, not endless stretches. They divide time into phases: early exploration, mid-session flow, late-session discipline. Ace-queen might play differently in each. Early in the session, they use it to gather information. Mid-session, they maximize its value. Late in the night, they protect it conservatively to preserve winnings. This shifting approach keeps the mind alert, turning monotony into strategy. In live poker, the environment adds challenges: noise, chatter, bright lights. Professionals filter these distractions through calm breathing. They focus their gaze on simple constants: chip stacks, dealer hands, bet sizing. Each act of narrowing attention quiets the room's chaos. Online, the distractions differ: messages, notifications, fatigue from screens. Professionals manage this with timed breaks, dark mode interfaces, and mental resets between tables. Mental endurance is not about ignoring fatigue, it's about respecting it. Professionals know when to stop. The hardest fold in poker is the decision to leave a profitable table, because clarity has faded. They understand that fatigue erodes judgment invisibly at first, then suddenly. Protecting their decision quality outweighs any desire to keep playing. True professionals quit while still sharp, not after mistakes have already exposed them. Ace-queen illustrates this perfectly. In the first hour, it's easy to fold it to a cold 4-bet, or to float a flop with balance. 10 hours later, the same situations blur. Fatigue makes risk feel smaller, logic slower. Professionals train to recognize this drift, the moment when their inner voice grows faint. When it happens, they slow down, breathe deeply, and simplify decisions. They default to safety over speculation. Fatigue cannot be eliminated, but it can be managed through awareness. Mental endurance also involves emotional forgiveness. Long sessions bring variance, coolers, bad beats, and missed value spots. Professionals recover instantly. They do not replay losses endlessly in their minds. They accept them as natural turbulence within a larger journey. This resilience frees their focus for the next hand. Endurance then is not just about lasting longer, it's about staying clear between storms. At its peak, long session focus becomes serenity. Hours pass, and the professional remains steady, unhurried, unbothered. The cards lose meaning beyond the present moment. Every fold and call feels like part of one flowing rhythm. Ace-Queen, handled in this state, becomes pure structure, neither hero nor villain, only a reflection of awareness. When you can play deep into the night and still make calm, reasoned decisions with Ace-Queen, when fatigue whispers impatience and you answer with silence, you have crossed into mastery. Poker stops being endurance against others and becomes endurance within yourself. The chips may rise and fall, but your focus never wavers. That is the quiet victory that defines a professional, the ability to stay awake, clear and calm long after others have fallen asleep at the table. Chapter 29. Recognizing Tilt in Others. Tilt is the great unspoken current beneath every poker game. It moves quietly at first, hidden in sighs, hesitations, or rushed motions, but soon it floods into every decision a player makes. While most focus on avoiding their own tilt, professionals understand the other side of the equation, recognizing tilt in others. This awareness transforms the table into a map of emotion. When you can see who has lost control, you can let their chaos create your calm. With Ace-Queen, the hand that so often punishes overconfidence, reading tilt becomes a form of quiet revenge through patience. Tilt begins when emotion breaks structure. It may appear after a bad beat, a misplayed hand, or even a long stretch of boredom. Professionals watch for the moment. A player's rhythm changes. A once slow thinker begins acting instantly. A steady bettor suddenly sizes erratically. The player who smiled and chatted now stares at the felt. These are signs of rupture, moments when logic has been replaced by frustration. Tilt is not always loud. Often, it's silent, simmering beneath a forced composure. Recognizing tilt starts with observing timing. The pace of a player's decisions reveals their mental state more honestly than their words. Quick, impulsive bets, after losing a big pot, often indicate revenge play. Long pauses followed by weak calls suggest indecision. Professionals track this rhythm quietly, not just hand to hand, but over hours. They note who slows down when unsure, who speeds up when angry, and who cannot stay consistent. Every inconsistency tells a story. Bet sizing also betrays tilt. Emotional players abandon structure. They bet amounts that don't match pot size, often swinging between extremes. After losing, they may overbet flops in an attempt to win it back. After winning, they may underbet to protect profits. Professionals interpret these signals through logic. A player who suddenly starts betting 2 or 3 times the pot rarely does so for balance. It's emotional overflow. Ace-Queen thrives here, able to trap through calm observation rather than confrontation. Physical cues matter just as much. In live games, tilt speaks through the body. A player slams chips, exhales sharply, or starts staring at opponents rather than the cards. Hands tremble during shoves, posture stiffens, eyes dart nervously. Professionals absorb these details passively, never staring or drawing attention. They listen to the table's energy without disturbing it. Recognizing tilt does not require confrontation, it requires stillness. Online tilt reveals itself through patterns. A player who instantly rebuys after a loss, or starts opening every hand, is broadcasting emotional instability. So is the one who changes bet sizing dramatically, fires multiple bluffs in a row, or uses the chat box to vent. Professionals interpret these digital behaviors as clearly as live ones. The medium changes, but the emotion remains identical. Once tilt is identified, the professional shifts strategy. Against tilted players, patience replaces complexity. You no longer need to force situations. The chaos will come to you. You play solid hands like ace-queen, with quiet strength, allowing them to overextend. Their emotions will fill the pot. Your structure will collect it. There is no need for fancy bluffs or elaborate traps. The tilted player beats themselves. Your role is simply to stay out of their way. Tilted opponents fall into patterns of overreaction. Some become hyper-aggressive, attacking every pot. Others withdraw completely, folding excessively. Professionals identify which form of tilt they face and adapt accordingly. Against aggression, they tighten, waiting for real value before striking. Against withdrawal, they open and steal more. Each adjustment flows naturally from observation. The tilted player's predictability becomes your edge. However, professionals handle tilt in others with subtlety. They never taunt, needle, or provoke. Such actions may create short-term advantage, but long-term chaos. Tilt spreads like contagion. Once it enters the table's energy, it can affect even the calm. Instead, professionals project stillness. Their presence calms the environment, quietly disarming emotion through example. When others rage, they breathe. When others rush, they pause. This stillness magnifies contrast, making tilted behavior even easier to spot. Ace-queen becomes the ideal hand in these moments, because it naturally balances aggression and control. It's strong enough to call down bluffs, but stable enough to fold when strength is genuine. Against a tilted opponent, it serves as both weapon and shield. You let them bet too often, call in position, and watch them unravel with each unnecessary barrel. You do not punish their emotion with anger. You redirect it through calm execution. One of the great insights of professional poker is that tilt is rarely about the last hand. It's about accumulated frustration, missed value, bad timing, emotional exhaustion. Recognizing the roots of tilt allows you to predict its duration. A quick burst of frustration may fade in a few orbits. Deeper tilt, born from fatigue, can last hours. Professionals adjust accordingly, extracting gently from short tilts and fully exploiting long ones. Empathy plays an underrated role here. Professionals understand tilt because they've lived it. They remember how it feels to lose clarity, to watch emotion take the wheel. That empathy keeps them patient and kind. They exploit mistakes without cruelty, respecting that everyone at the table battles their own mind. The difference is that the professional has built tools for recovery, breath, structure, and patience, while others still struggle to find them. Recognizing tilt is not about mockery, it's about awareness. It's seeing what others cannot see in themselves. The angry player believes they're playing sharper, faster, stronger. The professional sees only their rhythm unraveling. Each emotional action becomes predictable, and in poker, predictability is defeat. Ace-queen, steady and neutral, is your tool for turning their volatility into quiet profit. At its deepest level, recognizing tilt in others becomes a mirror for your own composure. The more clearly you can observe someone else's unraveling, the more secure your own calm becomes. You learn not only how others lose focus, but how you preserve it. Tilt in others becomes your meditation, a lesson in human rhythm and fragility. When you sit at the table surrounded by noise, chips flying, voices rising, and still feel the calm pulse of patience in your chest, you have mastered not just poker but perception. You no longer react to emotion. You read it, understand it, and let it pass through you. That is the final evolution of awareness. You don't conquer tilt. You simply remain still while it burns itself out. Chapter 30. Mastering the Trap Hand Mindset. Every poker player has a hand that defines their temperament. For some, it's a pocket pair that tempts overcommitment. For others, a suited connector that sparks dreams of big bluffs. For many, that hand is ace-queen, elegant, powerful, and deceptive. It looks like strength, but punishes impatience. It promises dominance, yet demands humility. To master ace-queen is to master yourself. The trap hand mindset is not about avoiding danger, it's about learning to see danger as part of the design, using caution as a form of control. The trap hand mindset begins with acceptance. You acknowledge that ace-queen will not always perform the way it looks. It will win spectacular pots one moment and fall silently the next. Professionals do not measure its worth by outcomes. They measure it by how well it teaches restraint, discipline, and structure. Ace-queen trains you to recognize false confidence, the kind that ruins bankrolls and breaks focus. Each time it punishes over-aggression, it reminds you that wisdom grows in stillness, not speed. The essence of the trap hand mindset is curiosity without attachment. You learn to observe the game without forcing it. You no longer chase the rush of big pots or the comfort of constant action. You play each street as a quiet investigation. What does this texture suggest? What does this opponent reveal? What does this sizing imply? You let information arrive, rather than hunting for it. This patience turns the trap into a teacher. Professionals see ace-queen as the mirror of their emotional balance. When they handle it well, it reflects their growth. When they mishandle it, it reveals impatience still to be refined. They understand that every mistake with it, every unnecessary bluff, every stubborn call, is a small lesson in ego. Over time, those lessons accumulate into intuition. The next time the same scenario appears, the calm player simply folds or checks without hesitation. Experience becomes instinct, and instinct becomes peace. The trap hand mindset also reshapes how you perceive opponents. You begin to see that everyone has their own ace-queen, a hand or habit that exposes their weakness. Some overplay their draws, others their pairs. Some can't fold top pair, others can't resist bluffs. When you understand your own trap, you can see theirs more clearly. This empathy deepens your awareness of rhythm. Poker stops being about combat and becomes a dance of timing and temperament. Emotional regulation lies at the heart of this mindset. Ace-queen tempts pride. It whispers that you deserve to win, that you're too strong to fold, that one more bet will make things right. The professional smiles inwardly at that whisper. They recognize it as the voice of illusion. The trap hand mindset replaces that voice with calm self-observation. What am I feeling right now? What is driving this urge? They use emotion as information, not direction. When you can observe your thoughts in real time and still act rationally, you've already won the deeper game. Strategically, mastering the trap hand mindset means redefining victory. It's no longer about winning the most pots, but about losing correctly and winning cleanly. You make folds that feel beautiful because they show restraint. You make thin calls that feel peaceful because they were grounded in logic, not hope. You bet for value without greed. Each decision aligns with balance. The trap hand becomes a meditation on proportion, knowing exactly how much is enough. Over the long term, the trap hand mindset sustains endurance. Poker will always oscillate between clarity and chaos. Some nights you'll catch every board, other nights every flop will miss. When you view ace-queen as part of that natural rhythm, neither gift nor curse, you stop measuring sessions by results. You measure them by composure. Did you stay balanced when variance turned against you? Did you maintain focus when fatigue set in? If so, the session was a victory, regardless of the numbers. In tournaments, this mindset keeps you alive through pressure. Short stacks, bubble stress, and rising blinds all test patience. The player with the trap hand mindset remains grounded. They fold ace-queen in spots where ego would call, then wait for better opportunities. In cash games, it transforms profit into peace. You no longer chase outcomes, you guide the game through presence. Ace-queen becomes your compass. Its duality, strong but vulnerable, mirrors the balance every professional seeks. You learn to play it softly, letting the game breathe around you. You start trusting silence as much as aggression, and observation as much as logic. Over time, this mindset bleeds into the rest of your play. Every hand, even the monsters, begins to carry that same quiet discipline. The final truth of the trap hand mindset is that mastery has no finish line. Every session renews the lesson. Some days, ace-queen rewards you. Other days, it humbles you. But both outcomes refine you. The professional accepts this cycle with gratitude. They understand that the hand's beauty lies not in its results, but in the reflection it offers, the reflection of composure. When you can hold ace-queen and feel neither excitement nor fear, when you can fold it without hesitation or play it without pride, you have mastered not only the hand but the game itself. Poker becomes peaceful again, a quiet exchange of rhythm, thought, and patience. The trap hand no longer traps you. It guides you.